open our public meeting. So we all went to OML training, open meeting law training, and so we modified our agenda a tiny bit. So that's why you see the double times. So as the selectmen do, we will now have an initial open forum to start our meeting off. So we might be running a little bit behind. So do I have any questions, general questions? Yes.
Hi, Kristen Castigian, Carroll Hill Road. I'm curious if the board could give citizens a brief update on where the VGG site plan denial appeal process is at. If there's any information you can share.
I'll update you. It's public knowledge, so it doesn't need to be handled in executive session. So last night I was informed that our town administrator, the select chair, along with KP Law and a VGG representative, negotiated without any knowledge of the planning board on the appeal of the denial of the Valley Green Grove site plan. We as a board expect transparency from fellow boards and the town administrator, and we did not get that. In light of this, we actually asked Attorney Pill to join us just to help ensure that the planning board is not circumvented in this matter. I will let Attorney Pill explain the role that we've asked him to.
Okay. My name is Michael Pill. I'm a partner at
you can't close the door. I'm sorry.
I'm a partner at the law firm of Green Miles Lipton in Northampton. And my involvement in this, in a nutshell, is I was initially asked to advise the planning board when the developer objected. Attorney Mark Bobrowski was hired, and I certainly have every confidence in him. By the way, I think he wrote an excellent decision. I've read the decision denying site plan review, and I think it is a fine piece of legal work. And Attorney Bobrowski is the logical person to represent the board. And frankly, I am at a loss to understand why the select board simply did not approve him as your attorney. My understanding is that the select board is taking the position that because there has been an agreement, and I'm concerned about with whom. By definition, an agreement is if I and Mr. Scanlon agree to something. An agreement by definition is two people, and no one is representing the planning board at this point. So one of the things that concerns me is there has been no agreement with the planning board or anyone who has any authority to represent the planning board. For example, Jonathan Silverstein of KP Law, who's a very fine lawyer, I think has made it clear on more than one occasion that he represents the select board. And he's doing a perfectly good job of that. He's a fine lawyer and it's a good law firm. But the select board is clearly in a position adverse to the position of the planning board. And I believe in this situation, the select board's obligation is to approve the counsel who should be Attorney Bobrowski. There's simply nobody else in sight. Now, I'm also concerned that my understanding is the select board is taking the position that because of this agreement that you've been told about after the fact, the select board does not intend to make a decision about approving an attorney for the planning board for some time. Now, one of the problems with that is, as I understand it, Valley Green Grove wants to move the site plan zoning appeal from Worcester Superior Court to the Land Court, which, by the way, is something I wholeheartedly endorse. The Superior Court judges rotate every month. They have to deal with every kind of civil and criminal case. There is no efforts to get people to resolve the case. The land court judges are specialized in this area of the law, and believe me, this case is not one for a Superior Court judge who does not have that specialized background to start with. Furthermore, the key issue in your site plan case is whether or not the Valley Green Grove project is an agricultural use or a manufacturing use. One of your town residents, Mr. Russell, who I guess is here today, through his lawyer, Frank Fennessy, has put that issue before the land court by a counterclaim. So you already have the question of is Valley Green Grove's project agricultural or manufacturing? It's already in the land court. The worst nightmare that could happen for everybody involved is 2 court decisions. If that happens, I guarantee you there will be gaps, overlaps, and contradictions. So in this case, I think Valley Green Grove is very sensible. The problem becomes, as I understand it, Valley Green Grove would like to have the planning board agree to and endorse that. And you should have an attorney to go deal with Valley Green Grove. Otherwise, the only thing I can see is you all could vote to say you support and endorse moving the zoning appeal to the land court, and you could write a letter to the Valley Green Grove lawyer. And I've got, his letterhead if you want to do that. With respect to any possibility that you might be left without counsel, one of the reasons I'm here tonight in response to your chair's request is to assure you that on a pro bono volunteer basis, I will certainly do whatever I can to see that that doesn't happen. And I'll just briefly go through the hierarchy. The select board can and should, and they should do it promptly, approve Attorney Bobrowski to represent you. He's not only a first-rate land litigator, he and I have been involved usually on opposite sides since the late 1980s. As I think you all know, he literally wrote the book, Handbook of Mass Land Use and Planning Law, first published in 1993, now in his 4th edition, okay? And because he was with you all the way through, he's the lawyer who knows the most about the case. Now, if the select board declines to approve him, or if they simply continue to delay, saying we're not going to do it, there's a point at which reasonable people and lawyers can say your delay amounts to a de facto denial. Now, at that point, there is case law that says that a town board cannot, if the select board does their job and provides you with counsel, say, no, we want to go our own way. And the appearance of an attorney can be stricken from the record and the board left without a lawyer except, for example, the town council. Here, the town council was out a long time ago. Attorney Silverstein represents the select board who's adverse to you. That leaves Bobrowski. There is a narrow exception in the case law, and it comes from the town of Wayland, where within the past decade, the select board did what by delay the select board here appears to be doing in effect is simply saying we're going to leave you in the lurch to fend for yourselves and to run the risk of potentially being defaulted. And that's the reason why I came here in response to your chair's request. Under those circumstances, on a pro bono basis, the court, I believe, will allow an attorney to come in, and I'm willing to do that to represent you, okay? So I'm basically here to say I'm willing to be a backstop. There are even additional layers to that, one of which, and it's in the rule that was just by the Supreme Judicial Court that just went into effect on February 1st. What it says is that an attorney can prepare paperwork for you to sign, and you simply state on the paperwork by advice of counsel. Now, I don't believe that rule was in effect, or it wasn't brought up in the court cases where people have battled over whether someone else can help a town board. And if this sounds like legal hair splitting, it is. You see, if, for example, I prepare legal paperwork for you to sign in your own names, I'm not entering an appearance. There's nothing that can be stricken, and so far as I know, there is no legal way to keep me from doing that because you're still responsible because you're signing the papers. And of course it would state prepared by counsel and my name would be on there, but I'm not entering an appearance on your behalf, okay? And that becomes another way that even if worst comes to worst, and I try to come in as your attorney, and Valley Green Grove, say, comes in and says, oh no, throw him out, I can still do that. And because this is largely a paper case, I think that can be very helpful. And by the way, one of the very good things Attorney Bobrowski did that set the stage, whether he was anticipating it or not, but he did it, is at the end of your decision, he listed all the documents which are incorporated, which basically means it becomes a fairly simple matter to say to the court, here's our decision, and here's everything that came before the board, and we want you, please, Judge, to admit that into evidence and to consider it, okay? You put in then an attested copy of the zoning bylaw, an attested copy of the zoning map, and yes, the trial is called de novo, you start over, but if worse comes to worse and I have to sit there and try to whisper in somebody's ear, I will do that. And another option, by the way, in the land court, for example, because I wanted to get involved on my own motion, I ended up getting interested and fascinated by this case. I filed a brief as an amicus, a friend of the court. And that's something that I could do independently, in addition to, or possibly instead of, trying to be of assistance to you. There is still another option, okay? For example, in the land court, the judge, I can say, was definitely surprised when Attorney Silverstein stood up and said the town has no position. I will say I was surprised too. I have seen in the past situations where the select board goes one way and the town meeting votes something else. I was involved in a case in Amherst where basically the select board's attitude to the town meeting was, what do you people think you're doing? But they, being the town executive, said, the town legislative body, the town meeting has spoken. We're going to instruct the town council to defend the town meeting's decision, and they spent $100,000 and eventually won the case. And I know that darn well because I represented the developer who lost, okay? So that's when Mr. Russell, represented by a local attorney, Frank Fennessy, intervened. And the judge, I think one of the reasons he did that is he basically said, well, if the town's not going to defend, how can we have an adversary proceeding if we don't have an opposing side? And in effect, in the land court, Mr. Russell and Attorney Fennessy are doing that. And normally, where the board denies a decision, the courts would take the position with, say, an opponent of the project, well, you won. But the intervention rules are broader than that. One of the bases, say, for Mr. Russell or some other citizens, say abutters, to intervene is to say, Your Honor, the town is leaving the planning board in the lurch, either by refusal or simply by delay, and maybe they've agreed they're not going to claim a default, but they need to know whether the planning board supports moving the case to the land court, and therefore you need to allow somebody to intervene so there will be some lawyer to defend the position that the planning board has taken. And the reason that lawyer couldn't be thrown out is because that lawyer is representing the private citizens who intervene. So what I want to make clear is that I, and I think probably others, Attorney Fennessy in the land court has done yeoman's work. I never met him before this, but I can tell you, I not only like him, he's a very good lawyer. I think he's earned all of his gray hair, as I like to say I have. So in a nutshell, that's where things are. Now I think, appropriate thing for the select board to do, and I hope they would do it, is to stand up and take the position, all right, planning board, we disagree with you. We think you're wrong, but as the town planning board, you had a right to make that decision. And whether you were right or wrong is for the court to decide. It's the old, maxim of free speech. I disagree with what you say, but I will defend your right to say it. But if they don't, hopefully I've given you some idea of a fairly wide variety of options that you have, and I will certainly do whatever I can on a pro bono volunteer basis to see that you are not left in the lurch. Anybody have questions?
Does the board have any?
Do you have any questions first?
I don't. guess just for clarification, I don't think the selectmen have met since the case was filed, so no decision has been made by the selectmen as to who would represent the board or the town on these matters, so I think it's still open for discussion and debate.
But we are running out of time.
Yes, but the
And
selectmen.
we don't know what for real is happening. We only know what we have been told,
Well,
and
that's
some of
right.
those is conflicting. What we've been told both sides of it. So I don't, myself, I'm not sure what to believe. I'm not sure where anything is going. I know the selectmen have not met, but they also, as Mr. Pill said, they didn't deny it, but just by lack of doing anything could constitute.
It reaches a point where it amounts to a denial.
Right.
And you see, even if someone who doesn't represent you has gotten Valley Green Grow to say we won't claim a default till the end of March, my understanding,
Don't we have to be aware of that?
yeah.
The planning board
Oh,
be aware of that?
it is,
In writing?
it is irregular, and I've been in the active practice of law since 1986. I've been a member of the Massachusetts Bar since 1981. I did legal work before legal aid work, 1976 to 1978. I have never before seen a town select board leave a planning board in the lurch in this manner. Certainly Mr. Scanlon may be correct, they haven't met. Well, by golly, they need to post the meeting and meet. It's not a big deal to say because they've already approved Bobrowski once. I assume they have some idea who he is. Certainly Mr. Silverstein can bring them a copy of his book, and they can simply take 2 minutes and say, we vote to approve Mark Bobrowski and direct that he should be paid as he was paid to represent the planning board. Certainly, during the hearing, certainly the moving the case to the land court, somebody needs to speak to you. So your point is very well taken. The only person who should be negotiating any kind of an agreement with Valley Green Grow is your attorney, who is your advocate. It's an adversary legal system. Every party who has an interest should have an attorney who, under the ethical rules, is supposed to be a zealous advocate for them. So all I can do is hope that the select board will call a meeting as quickly as possible and do the right thing. Thank you.
When does the answer for the lawsuit have to be in by? Is
We're
it the
not
12th?
sure what the service date is.
My
So it's
understanding
20 days
is
from the service date, is that correct?
you have 20 days from the date process was served,
We don't know what date that is.
which is a problem. One thing you
Is that the
could.
day we got the papers, that we physically had to sign it? Is that the day it was filed here in the town hall? Is that the date it was
Okay,
filed
let me
in
just
court?
take a minute. No, commencing the lawsuit is filing the complaint in the court and filing the notice of appeal. Service of process
Right.
was the date you would have received the papers, probably by certified mail.
Certified mail.
Okay, that's the date of service of process. And the rules of civil procedure, basically, you don't necessarily need to file an answer in a zoning case. You should file an answer. It's certainly customary. In my experience, KP Law often files answers. If I'm doing special assistant town council work, I do. You certainly need to file what's called an appearance, which simply says, here we are, we know about this, we want to defend, don't default us, okay? And certainly what I'd be happy to do, and it's section 9 of Trial Court Rule 16, which is limited assistance representation, but section 9 of Trial Court Rule 16, and that's usually written Roman numerals, XVI, says that I can prepare papers for you to sign. And so if you'd like me to do that, I could probably do that by the end of the week and email it to you, and at least then you have an option. And basically what you all do is, whoever can come to the meeting, it should be at least a majority of the board, would sign that document as the members of the planning board. It has at the end what's called a certificate of service. You, can you do FedEx or something else where you make sure it gets there the next day? Do you have that capacity? Okay. You FedEx it to the clerk of the Worcester Superior Court, and then you first class mail it to the attorneys, and I could put their names and contact information. As a courtesy, you would also email it to basically everybody in sight who has an interest, including especially the other attorneys. That's the way I do it. I mail, which is the old-fashioned way the rules still say, but I scan it and I send it by email so they know what's going on. Then at least you will have entered your pro se appearance. That answer, by the way, can always be amended. There's a very liberal policy on amending pleadings in in other words, especially when it's a pro se answer, okay? For example, Attorney Bobrowski can come in and say, look, Judge, you know, I'm here now. This is the way I want to do it. And every lawyer does things differently. Any questions?
Does the board want me to kind of work with Attorney Pill and then get it to us at, we will need to,
When's your next meeting?
in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
But I think the selectmen need to take some action on this. They need to meet and discuss it, and then I think the board can react to whatever decision they make. I think
And
it's
I agree.
premature
It would be
for
good
the
to
planning
hear
board to take action at this point.
where they're at with that. So,
So
you know,
by
if we could
the-
get,
Okay, but
if we
this
could get a
is-
joint meeting with the selectmen, that would be good. At least we can discuss it and see where we're at with that.
One thing that would facilitate that is some deadlines are very important and some are not. Once in my career, I was convinced the other lawyer was, jerking me around. So he kept wanting more and more time from the 20 days. After 2 months, I defaulted him. We got to the land court, a former Chief Justice who's now dead, and the judge called us up and wanted to know what it was all about. And he turned to me and he said, the default is removed. Mr. Pill, do you have anything else to take up the court's time today? So I think especially under the circumstances of this case, what Mr. Scanlon has recommended, and it sounds like some of you, makes a lot of sense, which is to give the select board a reasonable chance. Hopefully, if it's true that Valley Green Grove is saying we're not going to do anything till the end of March, it would be very rare, and I certainly I have no reason to believe they're not going to do that, okay? More urgent really is the transfer to the land court. You need to have a lawyer who can take a position on that and start working with you to prepare a defense. So, you know, that makes frankly a lot of sense if only the selectmen will meet, and whether you meet jointly is up to you folks. At least you've got options, basically B, C, and D in your pocket if you need them, which hopefully you won't.
I believe from the data service that the last date is the 12th, and I've also been told the 13th. So if the selectmen will have a joint meeting before the end of the week, because we need some time before Friday, we could have an emergency meeting without any notice. Joint, both boards all meet and figure out a decision. Does that make sense? They can call an emergency. Actually, we have Karen here. Would you like to make a comment?
I will, but I want to make it clear again. Karen Spiewak, I serve as a Board of Selectmen. I want to make it very clear. I am talking as an individual. What I can tell you, first, I did want to say thank you to everyone sitting around the table. I know how hard you work. I know what it's like being on that side of the table. So again, just thank you. What I can tell you is I know Attorney Pill had brought up Select Board as a group, and I can tell you we've not met, so we've not, as a board, made any votes about this. You know, recently we do have a meeting scheduled Tuesday, and I had made a request actually Saturday and then again today that we do have a joint meeting with the planning board. I'm getting a lot of questions too. There's so much confusion, and I think it's important the public and all of us, not he said, she said, this email, that, we're all on the same page with that, in the spirit of transparency and figuring this out together. You know, courtesy and cooperation is the way to go, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, I did notice that our town administrator came in, and I don't know, through the chair, if she can share some more light on what's going on. But I too have many, many questions. I just want you to know that. And I wish I could provide answers, but again, I'm here as an individual. And that's really all I have to say, but again, thank you. And if you have a question for me, I'd be happy to answer, but just know why I'm here. I'm so glad I came tonight. But thank you.
I have one other, kind of weird question that possible that lawyers could probably answer. Back in October 16th of 2018, the Board of Selectmen had a meeting and they voted, and I'm quoting the motion, to authorize the town administrator to contact the planning director and the chairman and notify them that the Board of Selectmen is amenable to them seeking out their own municipal land use attorney for the purposes of their planning board, and we understand that KP is not their choice, end quote. So they voted back in October. You guys hired Mr. Bobrowski. Did they rescind the vote? Did they put a deadline on the use of the attorney? Like, how did it end?
This is getting,
Yeah,
sorry,
that's-
this is getting way offline as far as.
I don't understand why it didn't just continue
That's
until things
October,
were over.
that's all over with, that's done.
I agree. You don't want it, that's a potential legal battle that nobody wants to fight. In my opinion, with litigation now pending, there should be another vote of the select board. You may be right,
I
but
don't know, I'm asking.
but the question is, that's something lawyers could argue about all day,
Oh.
and the solution is to eliminate the argument by having the select board meet and hopefully vote again. Thank
I
you.
just want to state that technically, the Board of Selectmen policy, the Board of Selectmen policy is not to have a Board of Selectmen vote. It is the pure authorization from the town administrator.
Okay.
And the chair of the selectmen. The policy clearly states, page, Board of Selectmen number 76. It's on page 60. June 8th, 2004, there was a vote at the Board of Selectmen meeting. The board voted to limit town council access through the Board of Selectmen chair and or town administrator. So there technically doesn't need to be a vote. I just wanted to state that fact that that's our policy. I guess I don't want to drag this out any longer. We just wanted to answer the question to update the board, and everybody is updated. Further questions can also be given to the select board. They have open forum too, so you're more than welcome to answer any questions.
I just had one quick question, Madam Chairman. Has the chairman of selectmen given any indication verbally or in writing that he has a desire to meet and provide counsel for the planning board?
The only correspondence I received was what I told you, that they have met and they have worked on town administrator, select chair, KP law, and a VGG attorney. They have decided, they have negotiated an extension, but I haven't seen it.
And
Yeah,
none
that's
of you were involved in that?
No.
The planning board, I mean. No planning board members were involved in that?
correct.
Oh, that's magic.
That's my advice is, it certainly wasn't proper, it wasn't the right way to do it, but
Back on.
yeah, move on. Don't worry about it. If you got the time, take advantage of it. And again, I think
The
Mr.
big question
Sandlin.
is, if we have the time.
If you have the time, that's.
And
but
if
it's 20
if
days.
you don't, what I'm saying is, certainly what I see is, I can't imagine a judge who wouldn't remove a default
Okay.
under those circumstances.
Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And I wish you all well at
Thank you.
getting to resolve this. Take care.
That's
Good night.
Thank you. One quick comment. While I appreciate
comments.
Mr. Pill's comments, and you know, if there's any judge that would not remove a default, why is there a need for a default?
Hopefully there won't be, because frankly, regardless of whether it was done properly, I cannot imagine that after that being done, that Valley Green Grow is going to claim a default. The problem is, aside from morality, lawyers live in a world where if you pull a stunt like that, nobody's ever going to make any deal or reach any understanding with you again. So, and everything I've seen of the Valley Green Grow attorneys is they're, again, perfectly capable, ethical lawyers who are being zealous advocates for their client, but I've never seen any indication that any of them would not do exactly what they said they would do. Because believe me, a lawyer pulls a stunt like that, your credibility's shot, you're in big trouble.
But however, though, all that said, 20 days is 20 days.
But it's not a big deadline. So I hope you will all proceed as Mr. Scanlon suggested. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bill.
So, being 7:30, I am going to open the public hearing for MTD micromolding, the site plan amendment. In accordance with section 200-7.1 and 200-7.2 of the Charlton zoning bylaw, the Charlton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, February 6, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the Planning Board office in the George C. McKinstry Building, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. On the application of D&D Tully Realty, LLC, 15 Trolley Crossing Road, Charlton, Mass. 01507, for site plan approval to construct an 11,700 square foot addition to the existing 750 square foot building. The expansion will allow the tenant MTD Micromolding Inc. to accommodate the business's manufacturing and office space growth. The property is located at 15 Trolley Crossing Road, Charlton, Mass. 01507, assesses map 34A, block A, parcel 1.6, and is zoned residential small enterprise. Copies of the site plan application are available for inspection at the Planning Board office in the town clerk's office during regular business hours.
I think we already have that in the packet.
Okay, this just came in today.
February
this
6th,
is
yeah, February
February
6th.
6th. Have them both. Have it.
I will have you do your presentation and we'll go from there.
Great. Hello, my name is David Feist with McClure Engineering. I'm the project civil engineer. With me tonight also is a project applicant and owner, Mr. Dennis Tully. I'll go through briefly the site plan. Basically, MTD Micromolding currently has a 15,750 square foot manufacturing building on Trolley Crossing Road. That's a build. You can see the area shaded here in white. What they wish to do is expand their operation another 11,700 square feet. One of the issues we ran into initially was the Charlton zoning bylaw requires expansion our buildings only be 20,000 square feet in size in this zone. We went to the Zoning Board of Appeals back in September of last year and obtained a variance to expand the building to the size that we're showing, and that reference to that is also on our plan. It'll add extra manufacturing space for the building. Also, we're proposing a lot line change, so there will be, provided the planning board, approves the project, an A&R plan submitted. There's the existing lot line follows this pattern, and we'd like to basically straighten out the property here between the Henry Kamasi's property here and this property here in order to give the adequate setback distance from the side yard. Mark LaPrade Surveying will be submitting that as a separate submittal to the planning board. With that, there will be also a sort of a shared, just an additional driveway that will be constructed on the Kamasi property with an easement to MTD Micromolding, which will allow access to get both the larger delivery trucks for Kamasi off of Trolley Crossing Road, as well as also to be used for MTD Micromolding to get trucks around their property as well. And we also submitted plans to the fire department, and they're, I believe, an agreement that also provides adequate fire access around the property. And there will be also an easement on the MTV property so that the Kamasi vehicles can also exit through there. The other nice thing too, they have a liquid nitrogen tank to be located in the back that will also allow for delivery for that as well. We're adding additional parking on the side of the building here, as well as improving the stormwater management on the property. And I guess as far as the site layout, that's sort of the basic. I believe we meet all the zoning requirements. We have had Graves Engineering review the plans, received a comment letter from them, responded to them, and we just received this afternoon, probably a few hours ago, just to acknowledge we've addressed all of their comments. One of the other items, I'll just also just submitted today, was basically, we just received, one of the, was the color selection, was a concern for the architectural. The architect has provided us just with a rendering of the existing building and what the addition off the back will look like, just for the planning board's review. And we provided a few copies, for your review as well. And I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you might have in the project.
I want to note that we have a letter from the Charlton Fire Department, and I'll just go through the fire department equipment access to the property is accepted as submitted, the addition to the existing property.
Yeah, you've seen the slide.
The addition to the existing property requires both the existing and addition buildings have a fire protection system installed throughout. The water supply for the fire protection system will be from the opposed extension from the existing line on H. Putnam Road extension. Fire department connection location to be finalized in conjunction with the building department upon issuance of a building permit. So anything stand out specific?
Well, I wonder if you could describe the water system connection for us?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Currently, basically there's a sewer line that connects down, this is Route 20. So there's currently a sewer line that connects to the building, there's an existing water service that ties into the building over in this area here. Basically there's a proposed extension of the water main down Trolley Crossing Road, which will be happening in the very near future. And from that, there'll be basically a 6-inch fire protection service will be provided to the new building, in addition to a 2-inch domestic service. And I believe will both buildings be sprinkled as part of this project.
When is that line expected to go in?
That I don't know off the top of my head, but that's something that we could find out.
So we'd be able to get that connected before you open?
Yes. I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Did you say you're connected off of Route 20 now?
Correct.
Small line.
Yeah, there's a
Small one. Okay.
And the building will be sprinkled?
Will you keep both connections off of 20 end, or
No.
you close one on 20 and just use the one?
Correct.
Thought you'd have a backup maybe. See who gives you the better rates, you know?
I doubt it.
Can you show where the new light poles will be going in?
I don't have a board with me, but we did propose just some new lighting. We have some new light poles that are proposed on here to supplement the lighting along with some wall packs on the building. And now there's a photometrics plan, which is part of the plan set, which shows the lighting. And
Are those connected via overhead wires or underground wires?
all underground.
Underground, okay. Good.
Additional landscaping.
Yeah, we'll
New
provide
landscaping over there?
Yeah, we're providing some additional trees in order to meet the bylaw for the parking spaces.
Do we have additional board questions? Pretty standard.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
it
say.
is in the-
One of the comments was about the dumpster. Could you describe what you're doing with that?
Yeah, basically, we're just providing a double dumpster closure down along the side here.
And will it be screened?
Yes, yep. And I believe there's a detail in the detail sheet.
And what does that entail?
I believe it's just, I don't have
Is
the
it chain link?
chain link with probably the privacy slats.
Is that acceptable to the board in terms of?
Where's that gonna go, in the front?
I'm right actually back here, sort of in the side.
Any additional fencing around it, or I should say around the building at all? Or
Nope.
Do we want to open it up to the public? Yeah, sure. Is there any questions from the public on? So just to note for the record that we have a report from Graves that had, 17 items, and every single one of them has been acknowledged. So just-
You might look at number 17, which is waiver request. So the applicant's asking for waivers from the requirement of a traffic study in preparation of a landscape plan. So I think you would have to discuss and decide whether you would grant those waivers or not. Can you, sort of, just to address the traffic question, how many employees will be working in the building upon
32.
32?
We're not adding any employees, we're actually relocating one section of our business, which is our tooling department, into the new area. It's very crowded right now, and this will give us enough space to actually spread
Okay,
out.
so there's no new
No
employees?
new cars, no
Immediate.
new employees.
No,
And any, will there be an increase in truck deliveries, things of that sort?
no, not expected.
Okay.
You
So it
don't
appear
have
the
big
traffic
tractor
waiver
trailers, no.
would be reasonable.
Do we have to vote?
And the landscape, maybe you could just talk about the landscaping plan here and why you decided not to submit?
Partly, I know the existing building, we're not really touching the landscaping in sort of the front area here. And again, we are providing some of the trees to meet the bylaw. So there's really not a lot of other landscaping. There's sort of the easement where the sewer runs down, and where sort of the existing wooded area in the back will remain. So we felt there was at least some existing landscaping supplemented with the new trees before they, be adequate.
We should go probably, I know I go by there frequently, and it always looks very nice.
Yes, very clean, very nice.
I see no problem with it at all.
No, none at all.
I know Lisa goes by there every day.
Yes, I do. Yeah. You guys do an awesome job of keeping it clean, neat, and nice on the outside. I can't imagine anything being different.
Thank you.
So there was no public comment?
So no public comment?
Should we make a motion, we close the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Let's take a discussion. I'll make a motion that we approve the plans for NPD micromolding for their addition.
Do we have to approve the waivers?
Yeah, I would say so, sure.
Will we do that after, or?
Well,
we do it first
the motion
with the
could
waivers?
include the granting of
And
waivers.
approval of the waiver, as, the landscape waiver as noted in number 17
And the traffic.
of the drainage report, traffic study.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I have the fourth floor
Okay, if you don't mind sending that around?
Yes, you can grab one of those.
Anybody here for four-store sign up? Well, I'll give you a pen right here.
And we have a grade report that I don't know, tomorrow.
Yes, there's something that came in.
Replacement.
You have it? No.
I have no problem at all. I'll stand up there, I'll walk around the room.
I just grades.
Oh, okay.
On camera? Yeah, I just wanna, okay. Is this the newest one right here that the January?
That's the latest one that I have, right, and then there's the four-score responses on the front cover. Did you pass that around to the, yeah, sure. To a bunch of copies now?
Oh, okay.
Please. Pass that down, take it.
For floor store?
Yes, the newest. Yeah. Being way past 7:10, in accordance with section 200-3.2, 200-7, 1D, and 200-7.2 of the Charlton zoning bylaw, the Charlton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, February 6, 2019 at 7:10 p.m. in the Planning Board office room in the George C. McKinstry building. 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. On the application of Foursquare Holdings LLC, 1 International Place, Suite 3700, Boston, Mass. 02110. For a special permit and site plan approval for an adult use marijuana establishment. The applicant proposes to operate a marijuana cultivation and production facility in an existing 20,000 square foot building with a proposed 1,000 square foot addition. Their property is located at 144 Sturbridge Road, Route 20, assesses map 30, block C, parcel 13, and is zoned industrial general. Copies of the special permit and site plan application are available for inspection at the planning board and town clerk's office during regular business hours. Okay, we'll let you make your presentation, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. My name is Daniel Glissman. I'm an attorney and a member.
Dana, can you just a minute, folks, can you close that door? Or
No, we can't close
Well,
it. They have to keep quiet.
The room, they can come in here, there's room inside. As long as the door's unlocked, it can be closed, so if you wanna join, join. If not, it's getting a little noisy. It is, it's getting loud when we can. As long as the door remains unlocked, okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, no problem. Again, Dan Glissman, member of the Fourscore team, and as the board is well aware, we are here seeking site plan approval and special permit for a project at 144 Sturbridge Road for a adult use marijuana establishment for the cultivation and production of cannabis. As the board's also aware, we've been working on this project for quite some time now, beginning around almost a year ago from today. I think we started really around in March, and we've been working very hard to get to where we are today, and so we're very pleased and thankful to be before the board this evening. This team is made up of a group of industry professionals that are eager to move forward on this project. Myself, I'm an attorney in the cannabis space and have been working in the cannabis industry in Massachusetts pretty much since its inception on the medical marijuana side, and now continuing through to the adult use. Joined by Matthew McGeorge and Kurt Smith this evening, two other additional members of our team, both of whom have designed numerous facilities in Massachusetts to the tune of somewhere around 500,000 square feet of cultivation space, and are eager to bring their expertise to bear on this particular project. We held a community meeting back in July, and we received what I think was pretty good feedback from the community. We're located in the industrial general zoning district, and as such are allowed by special permit for the proposed uses. This is an existing building. It's really an ideal building for our proposed use here in terms of its current layout, just in that it's a 20,000 square foot warehouse building that's got really good bones and a significant amount of space for us to work with. So I think I'll just kind of walk you through a little bit of our proposed project here. We have, as I said, we filed our initial application with the planning board back in the end of July, and so at this point we've gone a couple of rounds with Graves Engineering to comment on the civil component to the plans. And I think at this point we've really satisfied everything that he has brought to our attention. But here you can just see a front shot of the building. We're really not proposing any changes to the existing building apart from potentially some signage, maybe an awning in the front. We have provided in our plans a set of drawings and photos of the existing space to sort of try and orient the board. Again, existing brick building with a significant amount of space and paved area as it currently exists for parking. You can see we're right on Route 20 here in a commercial and industrial corridor. So I'll just briefly walk you guys through the site plan. So we are really not proposing much to change to this building. We're proposing some bump outs in the back for equipment and air handlers and the like. And otherwise we'll be improving the space with landscaping as deemed appropriate by the board, striping the entire lot with parking spaces, just making sure that the flow is well circulating for traffic and parking purposes. We've set out where we'll store the snow, which will just be in the back of the building. We've also proposed a dumpster in the back that will screen. Obviously, we're including handicap parking, and other than that, there's really no additional changes to the exterior of the building. And I think I will bring up the architect on the team, Matthew McGeorge, to kind of walk through. Oh, sorry, this is the existing conditions of the property. Again, really, we're not changing much apart from the fact that the exterior paved area isn't really striped. There's currently a chain link fence. We're going to remove that portion that would be blocking the back parking area and pave all of that for employee parking. And as you saw before, add an additional little bump out for equipment. Matthew, you want to just walk through?
I'm Matthew McGeorge, architect of record. I've been working in the cannabis industry now since 2014, starting in Rhode Island with the early applications before any of the facilities were online. And since then, I've worked with Fuss & O'Neill and the partners of this group over the past few years to develop probably about 1 million square feet worth of cultivation, processing, and dispensing facilities, including Pennsylvania, Ohio, upstate New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Now we're actually branching out into Missouri to help people with the application process and navigating approvals. When this facility came online for us, it seemed to be ideal. Again, the location was appropriate. The existing building is ideal, given that it's a robust structure. The size is modest but appropriate for the amount of volume that we anticipate for this community. So it's certainly not overskilled in any way. So again, it's basically an existing shell with an office space currently in the front east corner, which ideally in the future we can talk about potentially, creating a dispensary component. But for the purposes of this hearing, the idea is that the facility flow, staff and supplies would be delivered around to the rear of the building, so it's out of the public eye on Route 20. So you'd have a shipping and receiving area, secure vestibule and entrance for staff members, locker room facilities, and then the way the manufacturing process would flow is it starts at the early stages of vegetation, the mother strains, cloning, and then going through the flowering process into drying, trimming, packaging, and post-production. Ultimately, then shipping would occur also to the rear of the building, out of the public eye, essentially, if that was a concern. The primary public entrance, if you will, if the police, if fire, any council members, auditors, anyone who wanted to come in to see the facility, they would come in. There's a meeting space with the support office to provide that outside of the secure cultivation facility itself. So it's actually a very simple plan, and I apologize, I have so much experience with this, I take for granted what I know for these, so if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt or interject. Again, as Dana points out, the exterior, there's really nothing to do in terms of scope. There's existing wall packs that will basically work as security lighting. Anything that the Cannabis Control Commission or the board would require, we would simply accommodate. There's nothing out of the ordinary here, I think. And again, once we get into, hopefully once the approvals are given, we can get into the signage and provide, zoning compliant signage as needed. So that's pretty much my end of the story. And
Yeah.
Can you just sort of describe some of the processing activities that will take place?
Certainly. I actually turned it over to Kurt, one of our other team members, who's more of a cannabis specialist.
So currently our product line is not completely developed, but this is, as it sits, a wholesale operation. And so we would be serving other dispensaries, and unless we were provided an opportunity to retail cannabis here. But the products would be concentrated, raw cannabis flower, concentrated oil products, various forms, vape cartridges, and capsules, edibles, things like that. So, very basic manufacturing and processing equipment, CO2 and ethanol based products. There are other types of solvents we could use, and the size of the manufacturing space is fairly modest here. So the manufacturing really starts with the drying process, and some of that product will be used, packaged as flour, sold off the shelf the way it is in a jar. But the concentrated oils will be processed in the extraction lab here up in this is north side of the building. So manufacturing would start from drying, go up into trimming and grinding, and then it would end up in the extraction space. There's a vault here. Most of the product will be stored there. Originally it was designed here because we had originally conceptualized the dispensary here. So in the fulfillment areas, you would not want to walk very far with that product across the facility. So this is the entire post-processing space for the facility.
What are we doing for odor control?
So odor control in the cultivation space, any space where cannabis is open to the air, you're using carbon filtration. So the air handlers, which are not shown on the plan here, they would be shown in mechanical drawing sets. They're all outfitted with carbon filtration on the exhaust. So any air that would be sent from a process space to the outside will be filtered.
I think that we should certainly, because we're not too worried about sound, because I think it's going to be quieter than the previous use.
And it's an industrial one.
And it's industrial, but even with odor, because odor travels, I think that we should look at an odor plan. I don't know if that was submitted or.
We do have an odor mitigation plan that we can provide. It wasn't a requirement, so we didn't, but it's typical that comes up, and we can provide you with the actual specification of the equipment that we would use. We would provide you with an operation and maintenance plan, show how often we need to change the filters and their level of efficacy.
Can you reach out to, is it Ned?
Ned, yes.
And see if he can do, I mean, obviously it'll be less extensive than we've previously done, but to make sure that we're
We can
protecting.
review those.
So should I get a cost estimate from him for that review first, or?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I assume, I'd let you know what that cost is and you would
Absolutely.
provide that some, okay.
Yep.
Sure.
What's the square footage on the grow area?
So the cultivation area as it's conceptualized here is roughly 9,200 square feet. And, the host agreement actually, and development agreement speak to canopy space. So, the current state of the market is that the dispensaries that we're seeing that are open are currently underserved with product. You've seen a lot of, order control over how much, there's a legal limit that you can purchase throughout the state, but most of the dispensaries at this moment are not, selling to that limit. They're limiting what each customer can sell. So we have been considering increasing the canopy space by using a vertical cultivation concept. So whereas these benches that are shown here, they're mostly for scale, but they slide back and forth to maximize canopy space, we would use something similar with a second tier and LED lights. So I think the original design for the canopy space was somewhere around 7,500 square feet. Give or take, depending on fire suppression, building mechanicals, et cetera. We think we can achieve somewhere between 13,000 and 15,000 square feet of cultivation space if we double it.
And the tiers are regulated by the state, so there's a certain level each time you exceed another 10,000 square feet of canopy space, maxing at 100,000 square feet of canopy, and they have extensive tier regulation components built into the regulations, which effectively say if you grow more than you can sell, they're going to automatically reduce the amount of canopy space you can have until you can show that you can grow at least or sell at least 70% of the cultivated product that
So
you're
what
proposing.
tier will you be applying for?
I think the way it shakes out is up to 10,000 square feet is a tier
Tier
two.
two.
So
That's
we're
right.
probably looking at something like tier 3.
Tier 3.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think we would go above that.
That's right. Certainly not above tier 3, and depending on the, whether we use the vertical model, it could be the tier 2 for the first phase, if you will. And in connection with the plan, we submitted a comprehensive narrative to the board that kind of walks through all of the permitting requirements set forth in the zoning bylaw. We also prepared a security narrative that was submitted to the board, and then certainly the plans as well as a traffic statement.
Now, the zoning bylaw requires a security plan to go to the police chief. So we'd certainly like to have the police chief's input on your security plan before making a decision.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, we've met with the marijuana advisory team, of which there's a representative from the police department. The security narrative was obviously included with this package back when we submitted it in July. It's been circulated with the Board of Selectmen and their office as well, in the town clerk's office. So we'll be certain to check in with the police department and see if they have any comments. But I know we've spoken with representatives from the police department numerous times and haven't received any comments back from them to date.
You asked them then just to shoot us some correspondence saying they're happy, not happy, whatever, just something that, so we can put it in the file?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to do so.
And the mechanical systems, are they based on canopy or square footage of the building?
So the indoor climate for the cultivation spaces are based on the humidity levels in the room. So we're showing the mechanical equipment here, which is it's a propane based system. There on the site plan you can see that there are propane tanks up near the shed out back. We may just change the size of those, and they'll feed these chillers here, which air handlers would be suspended over the walkway here, and chilled water would service the air handlers for cooling, and hot water for dehumidification.
Now, were those propane tanks above ground, underground?
They are. Right now they're currently on saddles. I think there's two 1,000 gallon tanks, and when as we calibrate the size of the canopy to the cooling equipment, we'll probably change the tank to a little bit larger of a size.
Is there some zoning that requires tanks to be above ground, underground, as far as propane tanks?
No, I don't think it says.
Okay.
Would the board want to do a site visit of this property to, I mean, it seems fairly straightforward, but I don't know if you want to go in and walk through it and get a better sense of what it might be like.
It's pretty much an empty building right now, right?
It is. It's a vacant
That's right.
building.
I have a ton of photographs as well. I mean, if you want, we can send some
More than you
of interior photographs. Just
Yeah.
I'm not sure when the auto parts store moved out of there, but you can see from the aerials, they're usually 1.5 years old. It's the same thing sitting there.
I do have a question on the Graves Engineering report on item number 6. He talks about, you guys had talked about putting in new security lighting, and that there wasn't shown on the new plan.
So
Yeah, so we had had a note on the plans. Basically, so these plans will ultimately, along with every other component of this business, will get reviewed and regulated at the state level.
Okay.
The state will take a deep dive of all of our operating policies and procedures. Everything from how our employees are checked in, to how we store the product, to how we grow it, to how we package it and market it. And included in that review would also be an architectural review of our plans. So typically, we include a note that gives deference to the Cannabis Control Commission. To the extent that they will require additional security lighting, we'll be required to add that. We don't anticipate that any additional lighting will be necessary. As Matthew mentioned, there's wall packs on the existing building, and we think that's enough to give coverage to the parking area, which is effectively what they're looking for. They want to make sure that it's a secure area, lit enough to be able to take video footage of.
So will you be doing that kind of walking through that process the same time you're walking through us, so we end up getting the final lighting approved plan at the state level too?
Yeah,
or-
well, certainly, we will be, the architectural review process occurs after we're provisionally licensed by the state, which requires them to review our policies and procedures and vet the team itself and go through extensive background checks, et cetera. So, I would expect that before we pull building permits, maybe apart from doing sort of interior fit out work, I would think before any certificate of occupancy is issued, certainly we will have gone through that same process. As to the exact timing, I think we're probably, at least 4 months out from getting to the architectural review phase with the state, maybe longer. I'm told that they're more like 6 months behind at the moment in terms of reviewing licenses. So I would think that we'll be hopefully further along with our sort of final design here. And again, we've worked with all these regulators before. We're pretty familiar with what they're looking for. We would hope that the plan that we present to them is in final form.
And I realize it's wholesale, but are you guys gonna be 24 hours? Are you going to have set hours like an 8 to 5, 9 to 5 type?
Yeah, I don't think we've discussed what hours the business would operate, but yeah, as a wholesale, it's really business to business from this perspective. So, it would be, I'm not sure, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. close time and early opening, whatever is necessary for, properly caring to the crops, et cetera.
Were you thinking of setting hours of operation?
I was just curious. I'm thinking trucks going in and out. I realize you're in an industrial area, so it truly doesn't matter. But out of a curiosity standpoint, I wasn't sure what the facility was going to be like.
Yeah, I think shipments of products as necessary would occur during regular business hours.
You would have a staff there at night, security staff, or do you have technicians working at night?
The security staff. Well, Kurt, if you want to jump in, feel free.
So this facility really, it's, in our experience, it's not large enough to need to staff for 24 hours,
Gotcha.
right? So you'll have redundant security monitoring. The state requires that you have 2 different monitoring contracts with 2 different companies. One security system, but access for police department, but also redundant monitoring systems on 24-hour backup. There will be a generator in this space. Part of the equipment here that's going to provide some of the power to the building will actually be, we can run it off of propane and provide some power to the building. The current electrical service in the building won't allow us to do that, but you're required to have battery backup for 24 hours. I think it might be 72 hours actually, and we'll have redundant power in this mechanical space as well. So the hours of operation in a much larger setting, what you might do is run a couple of shifts. Some places are running 3 shifts. With the size of this facility, we don't see that as necessary. So we don't expect there to be staff in the building late at night.
And really, it's the video footage that's the key security component to these. The cameras will cover the entire facility. We have to. It's as much monitoring our own employees as it is from outside security. I think the number one cause of diversion for these cannabis facilities, to my knowledge, is from their own internal employees. So.
How many employees are you anticipating?
I think about 20.
We had originally modeled 20 to 25 if we had added the retail area, but we're looking at somewhere around, I think what we talked about last night at the Marijuana Advisory Committee was like 14 to 16 people, somewhere, 15 people I'm going to estimate.
Some of that depends on the level of automation and equipment at the end of the day, trimming, packaging, things like that.
And certainly the sales force would impact that. If we continue as a business-to-business entity, we'll have to be, out there marketing our products.
And right now, you're just coming in as manufacturing or as cultivating only?
That's correct.
No retail?
That's correct. I think, we've been very transparent that we would obviously be interested and have a desire to propose a retail component at this site, should it be an appropriate time and
that would be
location.
something you would have to come back before us.
That's right. Currently, the application before the board is only for cultivation and production.
You referred to the bump out in the back of the building, is that what I'm seeing right there, or not?
This
No.
is
To the side.
right here, this is a
That's true.
30 by 30 structure that will come off the back of the building to enclose the mechanical equipment that we're gonna use. And, I mean, it's gotta be temperature controlled.
Mhm.
So, you know, originally we had modeled something off the north side of the building, but it would have impeded access, and this allows us to have more parking.
So it's an enclosed building there.
It is, it'll
And that's
have a
with the
roof on
propane.
it, yeah.
Did you say that you were gonna bump out the back?
Originally, but
I mean, for parking or such, or
well,
clearing?
no, so if you look at the, yeah, these are the proposed improvements. So, so we've added these spaces here on the north side of the building. These were existing, a couple have been, restriped.
We haven't added surface, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Right,
It's just
right.
striping.
So
just to clarify, it's
And
striping,
Okay, so
not
you're not-
increased
okay.
impervious
So
area.
that's screwing with the
Right.
drainage.
Right.
That's
Right.
right.
Okay.
Do you show landscaping on that new landscaping, or is there additional landscaping you plan on taking
If-
care of?
If the planning board finds that appropriate, we're happy to accommodate that.
So you're probably gonna lose a lot of landscaping around the left-hand side.
It's actually
This
hard
is-
surface now.
Is it?
It is, so all right here is paved out to this gate. It looks like somebody maybe originally would have planned another curb cut here, and they just gated it off. So it's screened now, it's a chain link fence with vinyl.
What do we want for the dumpster?
So the dumpster's shown up here off the edge of it's a, I hate to call it a garage. I mean, it probably qualifies as an outbuilding, but it's a tool shed. So, you know, we're not going to have access for any process, we're not gonna be accessing that for process equipment. So we're gonna use that whole area as a general waste area.
Waste for production waste or for office waste?
So, both. And so requirements from the state currently are that, you know, but even processed waste has to be hauled by a state licensed operator. And so most of the people who service this area commercially will also service the cannabis producers. But all of that process before it goes out will be, I'll show you here in the drawing. And we'll detail this in some of our narratives in our application, but this receiving and storage area as waste is, and we have two, actually Matthew titled it here, so, you know, before anything leaves the facility, has to be mixed in with soils and rendered useless, so
That's right.
it's usually ground up, so, and there's a percentage of non-cannabis waste to actual cannabis that needs to be mixed together before it's put in a locked container in the back of the facility.
Is there any odor associated with the waste products?
So there is some, but usually the waste containers are airtight. So, you know, I think that maybe while they're pulling the waste and driving away with it, you know, there might be some odor as they leave.
Does your odor plan address that issue?
It does not, and, you know, we've not had to address that, you know, in previous projects. So, you know, in some cases, some of that waste will be staged on the interior of the building. So the way you handle that is, you know, you're probably storing that here inside until, you know there's a trash pickup coming. And with these rooms, I mean, we're probably only gonna be taking down one room a week, so the biomass that comes out of here is not gonna be significant. A lot of it's used, so, we're happy to detail a waste management plan for you if the board wants to see that.
Yeah, we have the disposal plans, again, regulated at the state level, reviewed closely for compliance with the state regs, which do in fact detail exactly the process that Kurt's referring to in terms of mixing the product with soil and
Just a
rendering it
ballpark,
useless.
how many tons of waste per week would you think? Or
I'd
is it
say
even
if
in that range, or?
It wouldn't even.
No,
Yeah.
it would be, I mean, a full room is only gonna produce, you know, I'm gonna say, 150 pounds maybe a week, something like that, right? So,
Of product. That's
right,
not even
a
waste.
product, but the waste is, 50% of that. So, not.
Could you repeat those numbers again, so I guess?
So, we think at maximum, right, we could produce somewhere around 5,000 pounds annually. So that's something like 100 pounds a week, right? So, probably 50% of that, weight, would be,
It's like 250 pounds.
plant matter. So, I think that waste removal would be on a weekly basis. So, I mean, you're talking something that would be like half a dumpster's worth of waste.
Certainly with a larger facility, those numbers would be different, but this is a relatively smaller size facility, and frankly, a facility that we've seen, a size facility that the state's interested in seeing. They like these sort of more compact properties and projects. So, we're only 20,000 square feet total building size.
Yeah, but the bylaw requires a host community agreement, so I'm not sure if the board wants to condition an approval on having a host community agreement or wait for the host community agreement before making a decision.
I think we could condition it in that way we're done.
I would agree.
Sure, I think there's other things we need to see first, though. I think we.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know, I'm just sort of thinking ahead if you.
Right.
Yes, we need to look at
Where-
order and.
Yeah, where are you at with the host agreement?
Host community agreement has been negotiated?
Yeah, so we negotiated the host community agreement with the Board of Selectmen months ago at this point. They were waiting on the decision of the Attorney General on the general bylaw,
Sure.
which would have required it to go to town meeting. So at this point, it's our understanding that will be, I believe, before the Board of Selectmen on the 12th, to formally execute the agreement. But we have in fact already gone through the sort of negotiating process with the town council and town administrator.
So that shouldn't be a problem then.
Good.
That's right. And certainly, we're required to enter into a host community agreement by state statute, so we can't proceed without it, so we have no intention of not.
And we do have the traffic study.
Did we get a traffic study?
Yeah, it's included in the report. I have copies if folks would like them.
It's been a while since we.
No, of course.
We've had other things going on.
Yeah, understood. I'm happy to pass out copies if people
No,
want
I
them.
think we have it.
That
It's just a
you think
matter
it's
of taking a look at
necessary?
that again.
Yeah.
And an idea of perspective level, your project was pretty decent size until Valley Green Grow showed up.
And you guys, do you think with the location up here, we would want a engineer to review the traffic study? Because
I think the analysis currently suggests that the flow of traffic would be less than or equal to the prior uses at the site. It was, again, I think actually, in fact, the prior use did have a retail component to it, which is commented on in the traffic analysis.
what was the prior use?
It was auto parts. It was wholesale auto parts.
Currently, the property owner is still, I think he grew out of this space and moved still in
He's in
Charlton,
Charlton,
but just down the street.
So with 15 employees and not that many deliveries, I'm not sure there's a significant
Sure,
traffic
that's
impact.
what I was thinking too, but it'd be good to just
It
look
is
at that,
under
see
20.
what the report says. I don't think we need somebody to review it.
Yeah, let's look, I mean, it looks like it's almost cut in half, actually more than half, with the
Which
old
is
use and the
beautiful.
new use, so,
Mhm.
let's, I
Said
have.
half, but that's been vacant for how long, so it's going to be double what they're
What it is
looking
now,
at.
right.
But certainly no more than what would be an allowed use
Right.
at that site.
We haven't had, I don't know if I ever actually read this from the previous mission, so let's us review that, and then
Yep.
we can, at the next hearing, we can decide if we need
Sure.
to
That's
do
fine. That's fair.
a traffic study.
Do you have more copies of this with you?
We have,
we have one?
that's our copy, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah, I have copies.
it's probably on the town website also.
Oh,
It is, I forget what
Okay.
tab it's
Okay.
included in, but
Right.
it's on in that
Does that-
comprehensive
does that
filing
make
package.
sense? You know, unless we're,
I think we need to look at that. as
we're
a board.
worried, I never wanna add more cost to a project unless we feel
There's a
we need
concern.
to, so let's review, and if we have any questions
Yep.
on it, we can have it, we can
Yep.
bring
Yep.
in the traffic engineer. to
Honestly, at this point, my biggest concern, I think, is odor,
Yep.
and just to make sure that your
And
plan
that's gonna be, we'll
is
make sure that, I mean,
suitable.
I think
That's,
that's should be standard
that's-
practice on any
yep,
of these,
yep.
so we'll make sure
Okay.
that,
Right.
see, hopefully Ned will
Okay.
have availability to.
So you'll send whatever odor plans you have, and then I'll forward those to our odor consultant for the cost estimate.
Yep.
Anything else? So you'll, in the meantime, kind of clear off the rest of it, any comments that are still, don't have our little acknowledged, items?
Yeah, to my knowledge, we have already, well, I don't believe that Graves Engineering has responded to our last submission, but we have since responded,
Okay.
as of a week and a half ago to, that
I think,
that,
yes, we'll have that to the
that
board.
second
Right.
review.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there was only a few comments, that had gone that had yet to be acknowledged, relating to the stormwater report, et cetera.
Some checklists and stuff that can,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll need to look at the landscaping too, because I don't know what's there, if there's something
Yeah.
that could be done.
you can always drive up there.
Yep. I'll
I
provide
think
it.
the landscaping's pretty nice right now. I mean, I don't know that we
Yeah.
anticipated putting any additional, but certainly,
Yeah.
it's a nice looking building from just driving by it. Grass is probably not that green right now, but, you know.
Do we want to, we'll
We'll open it up?
public?
Sure.
I'm sorry, open up to the, do we have any questions from the public?
Thank you.
We'll leave the public hearing open and
Yeah, we're gonna leave it open, we want to, continue, so,
Do we have a
a
date?
date that we wanna do?
Let's see, we have, our next agenda is pretty full. Then the first meeting in March is the definitive plan,
Right,
and I think we wanted to keep that,
just that.
just devoted to that. So that would put us into the second meeting in March.
20th?
March 20th?
Yes.
We should be able to turn around those deliverables to you guys in a matter of days.
Okay.
Obviously, understanding that your next agenda is full, we're eager to move forward. So, to the extent that, you know, if we get you the documents in time, in a timely manner, we think we would be able to. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but we think we would be able to at least get those materials to the board expeditiously.
We're just looking at our next meeting's agenda.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, we, since we approved MTD, do you wanna put down?
Well, we do need to look at how much time it's gonna take for the odor
Mhm.
analysis and things like that. So that's gonna take a little bit of time on our side. I know that you can get the paperwork, with the information to us, but I don't know how long that's gonna take. I would think to give them at least a week or two to look
Sure.
at it. So
Probably.
I don't think the next meeting would be sufficient. If you wanna put it on for the 6th in the beginning, and we can get through it quickly, and you know, that's the other option, but.
If I might also add, certainly we would be comfortable with a condition of meeting the standards set by the peer review for the odor mitigation plan. To the extent the board would deem it appropriate.
I was gonna suggest that.
I'm not sure I'd like to leave that wide open like that.
Not that
Until-
particular.
Not in this industry.
This has been in
it sounds
one
like.
hearing, and
I
I think we need some
understand
time to at least give the town an opportunity to come back and review if they need to.
So this also is a special permit, so there are special permit criteria which need to be examined and
Sure.
satisfied.
Yep.
Do we wanna throw it
Yeah, I'm not sure.
before,
Now that I'm thinking of that, I'm not sure we want to do that on the same day.
cause all the people who are interested will already be here.
It's true.
It'll be,
Yeah, that's true.
and how, do we even think that it would be more than an hour?
I don't think it would be, but I can be wrong, you know, it depends on what happens between now and then.
Right, we're
We've
working with a
all,
whole bunch
we've
of
all,
them.
worked psychologically, we're all ready for meetings that last till 11. So,
Speak for yourself.
Well, you've been a little less than
I have
the
been.
process, so,
So if I might add also, so as far as the odor mitigation, I mean, this is what we do for a living. I mean, we've done these facilities for several years, so this isn't new to us in the slightest. So any consultant is going to see our report, presumably see the experience we have, see the measures we're taking, and you know, I don't want to say I would think it would be a formality on the peer review, but
Well, he doesn't know Ned.
And again, this is also covered extensively at the state level as well. So that,
Dr. O, Dr. O is pretty thorough.
That's great.
You've seen what we go through, marijuana. We're on top of this, so
we certainly
I completely trust you, but we need to have our engineer look at it. I propose the 6th. I think that if you guys do your job and get everything to Ned quickly, his turnaround is actually pretty
Gets him a month.
reasonable.
As long as there's no issues, it should be pretty quick.
And then I would suggest if there are issues, maybe Ned can work directly with them, so that way we can get in front of this,
Yep.
as opposed to,
So why don't we say this, we'll give them half an hour, 20 minutes. After that, we'll have to continue it, but if we can get through it in 20 minutes
Clear up
on
everything.
the 6th.
We want all acknowledged on Graves' reports.
Absolutely.
We could, if we can get through you guys in a half an hour, on the 6th.
I know.
Work with Ned, clean it. I mean, he's pretty thorough and he's very good about working
Yes.
with applicants.
We'll continue it till the 6th. If for some reason it's not working out, we can continue it.
Of course.
much
Put you
appreciated.
on for the
Absolutely.
6th. I make a motion.
Before or after the definitive plan?
Before, yeah.
Okay.
We won't make them sit through that.
Thank you.
And then if there's a catch somewhere where it's just not flowing as quickly as everybody thinks, then
We'll
you'll be
have
on
to
the next
continue.
meeting.
Yeah, we're old. We like to go to bed, so.
Understood.
Um,
Thank you guys. Thank you for
So let's give them 20 minutes in the beginning of that
Appreciate it.
meeting and stick to it.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to continue the public
Just
hearing?
make a motion, we continue it to March 6th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you on March 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Give it to Jane and then we stick it on the. Nope, yes, exactly.
Yeah, I got
And make your announcement again. Thank you. And then that one goes around with a pen.
You need those,
We'll make you an expert. Zero point energy.
I only have, Carpenter Hill.
Okay.
We're here for 0 Point, the definite subdivision plan.
Yep.
Can I get a pen?
So I'm opening the continued, public hearing for 0 Point Energy definitive subdivision plan on Osgood / Fitzgerald Road. Is this one of the water issues?
With that, for the solar project. not
This
for
is the
definitive
subdivision.
plan.
Yeah.
Do we have Jason Dubois from DC Engineering? Also Ernie Mello is here with us, 0 Point. Last hearing, you know, we had comments from Graves as well as Kurt. We did take care of those comments.
I dropped off plans with Graves last Thursday morning. I haven't heard anything. Did he?
No, we haven't got anything.
Okay.
We didn't get anything from
We,
Graves?
we got, this is Captain Hill, I'm sorry.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
How
what
about
I'm looking
from
for, I'm not
Kurt?
seeing
Did Kurt get a
anything.
chance to relook at it?
He had that original comment
Okay.
letter that we talked about at the
Yeah.
first hearing.
Okay.
January 9th?
Yes.
Letter?
Yes.
Okay. We have nothing from Graves?
Just the original peer review, which was dated, December 26th. So, I think you were holding off on sending him the revised plans until we discussed it at the last meeting.
Right.
And did you revise it and then send it on to him?
Yeah, I handed
Okay.
it to him Thursday morning, but I didn't know if there would be enough time. I hoped
Okay.
it would, but I guess
Okay.
not. So, I mean, we didn't really, we changed on the lot lines a little bit. He had some more detail he was looking for on the, couple of the culverts. It was mostly about lot areas. I don't know, how much you want me to go through?
Oh, yeah.
So there was an issue from Kurt with the dwellings on the property or something? Has that been resolved or?
The only issue with the size of the lot. Yeah, there was something to do with the,
It was making it a non-conforming
multi-use,
for what
like,
was.
The,
yeah,
the existing single-family house lot
Yeah.
is non-conforming.
right,
And by the merger doctrine, it sort of gets merged with the adjacent lot, which is a big lot where the solar farm will go.
right,
So Kurt was recommending that you increase the size of the existing house lot
yeah.
so that it would be a conforming lot on its own merit.
Yeah, so we added, that's what that lot C is, to be combined with other land of Mark Mitchell. That was an extra 6,000 square feet.
And that's enough to make
So,
it a conforming lot.
I believe so, yeah. I was wondering if Kurt had another chance to see it.
What's the size of that lot now with that?
It's 53,996, so with the additional 6,000, it brought it up to 60,000.
Good.
Is there any way to,
Yeah, so I was just gonna ask, obviously we know the point of the subdivision and the following the definitive was the whole zoning freeze, and we're following through here, so we kind of, not to say that we didn't have to formally go through the process, but I think we both understand we're basically doing this out of formality to make sure that the zoning for the solar project goes through, so I guess really it's a question for the board. If Mike Andrade hasn't sent a comment back, we'd be happy, and I think Jay'd be capable of walking through his comment letter and explaining how all those got addressed, along with Kurt's, which I think we just spoke about. But if the board ultimately is gonna wait for Mike's letter, maybe we should save it for that discussion. It's really up to the board if you'd like us to walk through those comments and just explain how they got incorporated from the first meeting until now. We could do it, keeping in mind really that this subdivision is
There could
ever
be more
gonna be
comments
built.
that we're not aware of.
Is that the new
Sure.
agenda?
Sure. Understood, so that's why I'm trying to just save, I guess, effort and time. If ultimately it's gonna come down to Mike's and he hasn't said anything, maybe we're stuck waiting anyway.
So you guys are already on our next agenda, where it's full, it's solid packed, but you're already on. Do you wanna just do that to simplify things and
is
that
that in
way
2
we
weeks
can?
or?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
Be the 20th.
that's fine with me,
It's gonna
especially
be
if.
it's gonna be the most simple thing to do.
Sure.
If you just work with Mike and make sure, can we reach out to Kurt
Sure.
and just get his, he's good, email?
Okay.
That will kind of.
Hopefully there won't be any significant comments after he gets a chance to look at the latest, so hopefully that will be a quick,
I don't expect additional, so it could be a quick in and out, that way you don't have to present now and then present again or
sure,
anything.
that's what I was thinking,
Do you
yeah.
want, that's
That's
fine.
fine with me.
Do you wanna
Yeah.
go to continue to the next meeting?
Can
which-
but before we do that continuation, can we ask
Oh, I'm
about
sorry,
the water
yes.
question?
Yes, yes.
That came up in
I
the last
actually
week?
have-
Maybe, since you're here, maybe you can comment on that.
I was gonna say, if it's more appropriate, I was gonna stick around till after the last public hearing got through, if there's a time. There was some comments that, I talked to Bill about last week that I wanted to discuss with the planning board. That's in regards to both solar projects, so if it's more
Okay. Do you
appropriate,
wanna
I can
wait till the end for that?
I think, why don't we do it now?
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Okay,
Here.
that's fine.
Well, let's do it. I mean,
You're here, you're
unless
on
you
the
want to
agenda.
be here.
All right, yeah, let's do it. I'm sure. So we can start with your
Okay.
questions on the water issues.
Why don't you
Probably don't need this plan.
show
Yes.
the lot? and
Yes.
the plan?
Yep. I did bring it because it has to do with both the projects. So I think the water issues are, or the potential water issues started here. So
Is this old Beaver Dam?
That was Todd's conclusion.
yeah, did you? If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But basically, what happened a couple weeks ago was we had 2 inches of rain. It was 60 degrees. All the snow melted. You know, we had a
Ground was
significant.
frozen.
Yeah, we had a significant amount of rain, so there was water that, yeah, water everywhere. And so we got a phone call. Actually, Bill called me directly about an abutter on Fitzgerald Road who had water. You know, called with concerns about water flooding his yard, and apparently it was pretty significant flooding. So that was pretty late in the day. It was like 4, I think it was around 3:30, 4. So Bill asked me if I would call him directly to just touch base with him. So I did, and spoke with him and told him that no one was there. I don't even think our crew worked that day because of all the rain. So I talked to him and basically explained to him that we would have someone out there tomorrow morning, the next day, to look at it and talk to him about it, which he said he was okay waiting. He's like, you know, I don't expect you to come out here now, but if you could have someone over the next day. We did look at it. Our crew checked the whole silk fence and hay bale line on the western side of the Mitchell. We call this the Mitchell array, this the McDougal array. Basically, they looked here. And this whole area, if you recall, was all 90% of the Mitchell array was cleared anyway. It was grassed. So we extended that line, but we just wanted to make sure the erosion control was in place, which they took pictures of and documented that it was being upkept and it was in place. And then they drove down Fitzgerald Road and just kind of looked. And I don't think anybody spoke with him the next morning, but we kind of drove down and looked, and there were a few abutters on Fitzgerald Road that were out doing some maintenance to kind of account for what had happened. So there's a stream, and it's pretty wide if anybody's been down there. There's a stream that runs southernly down here through these. And we called Bill, we talked, you know, said we more than wanted to do a site walk and look exactly to see what happened. If Todd wanted to get involved as well, which I believe when I followed up with Bill that Todd had got involved and went out there and taken a look and had thought that maybe it was due to a beaver dam, but we certainly looked to see if there was anything coming from our site, and we felt that that wasn't the case, but again, made it clear that we were okay going out there and meeting for a site watch, which never got scheduled, but again, we're open to doing that, and I think that's the process that we're trying to do if there are concerns, is meet with, you know, town engineer or representative from the planning board and make sure it's not coming from our site, and if it is, address it immediately, so.
Yeah, Todd did go out and look at it. He was fairly certain it was an upstream problem with the beaver dam.
Yeah.
Just got washed out in the heavy rain and sent a lot of water down through that
Yeah,
stream.
it can happen.
But he also thought that there was a little bit of sediment coming from your site. He wasn't specific as to where that was coming from, but so you know, if you've gone out and checked
Yeah.
those hay bales and the silt fence and made sure that they're secure, that should prevent.
We did, yeah, and I believe there's also an inspector that is contracted in checking those things on a basis, especially after rain like that. So we did review it, you know, just on our end, but I believe there's also an independent person who was looking at that as well.
Okay.
Additional questions?
You did have another issue you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe now's a good time to bring it
Yeah,
up.
sure. So when we submitted these, it's been a while now, but obviously the sites are being built. And we're looking at talking to our financing partners about procuring materials like the panels and the racks. And part of this project that was always kind of considered and planned for this was battery storage here. But we kind of didn't know the best way to go about it, whether, I guess we didn't include them, we didn't specifically discuss and speak to the planning board about batteries. I think it was pretty early. on this next wave of projects where battery storage has been kind of a piece that we want to include here. So we didn't really speak very intelligently, or we didn't really discuss batteries when we're back at the site plan review process here. But basically what's happening is we'd like to include battery storage here. We had kind of spoken offline in the past about including them and them being part of the building permit and being part of the wiring permit, which obviously the wiring inspector and building and permit would review and approve. But what's happening now is our financing partners who are procuring the materials want us to make sure that the planning board is approving, the site plan approval covers the battery storage here. So I had spoken a little bit with Bill about it and kind of just broken the ice about it. He asked me to come here and talk to the planning board. And I spoke actually with Mike Andrade today when I dropped off some other plans. His major concern with the batteries, but basic was the noise. I think there's some previous projects in town that had batteries included in them, and they used an older technology, a flywheel technology that has some noise associated with it. So the batteries would be proposed at where the inverters and the equipment pads were already located. So I've highlighted those just to kind of show where they are, and I have some plans to show the distances. I mean, they were accounted for in the inverter pad location. It just didn't specifically call out battery storage on them. So we're kind of wondering what the best way to go about this is. Again, our hope, obviously, we like not to have to open up another public hearing specifically on this, but we need to show the people who are going to order the batteries, and we want to make sure that we don't go put batteries out here and then have something come up in the past. We want to make sure we address it now before any of that stuff starts.
So what do you recommend the procedure should be?
Well, I think it's kind of up to you whether you feel it should be, if it's a significant modification, then there should be another public hearing. If you think it's sort of a minor change, then we can handle it, internally as a field type change.
Is there any additional, so there's no additional space being used? They're pretty much going to replace what we already have?
There's a additional battery, and the battery is an enclosed structure, and it's not, it's not tiny. It's about, they come in shipping containers, something that looks like a shipping container.
40 by 15.
And yeah, the rough dimensions of them are it's actually about 50 feet long and about 15 feet wide, and they're about 10 feet tall.
So show me again on the plan.
So again, this is the rough plan right now that you guys have seen. These highlighted areas would be the batteries, but I can zoom in here a little bit to show you what they look like a little bit better. So this is that first one, and there's the inverter pad, and there's the battery pad below it.
How many of these are there?
There would be 2 with this array and 1 with the Colburn Road array. So it's another addition of a concrete pad with a shipping container on that holds a battery. And it's not a flywheel battery, it's a lithium ion proposed battery. Again, it would all be laid out very specifically in the electrical permit, subject to approval by the wiring inspector. We've put it on the plans for the building permits, so the building inspector's getting a chance to look at it as well.
So yeah, do we have specification sheets on that?
I don't believe so, no, because I don't think we've ever had the technology and had the specifications ready to go to provide.
But it wouldn't slow you down if the board wanted to do a modification, because you still have a lot of construction of the solar field first, but.
Right.
So.
Can we get Kurt's input on this too? I mean, see what he thinks, because sometimes he has very good recommendations that can help us. Do we wanna, can we work this out with Kurt and even the wiring inspector?
Well, I think
and have them give us memos and.
One thing I was thinking.
And Mike.
in drawings showing us where these are, because there's not any drawings
Well, the
that we have.
specification sheets for the equipment.
So aren't you glad that you got the 2 weeks all the way to the next meeting?
Well,
so.
there had to be an initial discussion, which is why, and I was glad to be here tonight. One thing I was thinking is, I know in the past there's been a project that's been approved through the town that has battery storage on it. I'd be interested to see exactly how they handled it. Was there something in the site plan approval that said specifically the project was being approved for PV
I
array
can't even
and
remember.
battery
That was
storage.
Venture, that was before I came,
can't
so.
ever be, I don't even remember ever speaking about batteries.
I do,
The
one
Venture
time.
Solar Project
Yeah, it has one.
had batteries.
And I'm not sure
Do
what
you
it
recall
was.
what the discussion was with the
That's
board?
right.
I purposely did not.
Oh, that's right, you
Take
had to
part of
recuse,
it,
okay,
yeah.
right.
I don't think we can go off of past history
Okay.
for projects, though, so I think
No,
we
we
set a
want to
new
know.
standard that.
Sure, and again, we'll do what we have to do, it is when you speak about the site, to us, it's relatively minor, it's an addition of a pad. When we have moved forward and we've kind of included these from the beginning, what we show is just a concrete pad on the site plans. And it's, a 50-foot by 15-foot concrete pad that's in the same location as the rest of the equipment. But obviously this one was one of the early ones, so we're kind of going back. It's something that's happening after the fact which is why we're here talking
Can
about
you say
it.
they're 10 foot high?
A visual
Yeah.
Yeah, we
rendering
want
of
to,
this?
we want to see a visual, we want to see it
I'd like to see the spec sheets, I'd like to
on
see the
the
information
plan.
on the equipment.
The
I'd like
specs, we
to-
want it
and-
okay
and
from-
And I think opening up a public hearing might be the right way to go.
They're gonna
And as
come-
long as it's not a problem, then
We
it
still
should go
haven't-
quick.
Yeah, we have an open public
We
hearing.
have-
It's still, so, yeah, so.
Well, we have-
Well, not for the solar.
Not for the
not
solar,
No,
we
this
have
is-
one open for the definitive plan.
So since it's a change for the site plan, I think we need to reopen that. And it could be quick.
I just want to point out, I mean, we did show equipment pad areas on the site in these areas. And I mean, we didn't show details on anything else. We didn't show details on inverters or any of that stuff. And it's really just generic equipment areas that we called out. So I mean, even though we are adding those, there's not really much of a change as far as.
Right, which is,
the site plan.
I think what's,
would wanna see the foundation plan for the batteries.
I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what led us to
Which is fine,
here.
but I just, as far as the
You know,
site
I
plan
was-
goes,
Very
it's.
particular guy, so.
We
Yeah.
just, we
Is
kind of
fire
handled all the
suppression necessary
schematics.
is, there's other things that come along with the land that,
But as far as site plan purposes go, I'm saying it's just kind of we're
Right,
talking
yeah,
40
so-
acres and we got two 15 by 50-foot little pads. It's not, in the
Right.
scheme of things, we did already show the equipment areas.
And there's no noise associated with them, is there?
No, there's an HVAC, an
Right.
air conditioning system, but it's, your standard ACs, wall mounted ACs when it comes to noise. There's no flywheel in them, so there's none of that, and it should be significantly more quiet, I would think, than even the inverter, which makes, a pretty low amount of noise anyway. So again, yeah, to Jay's point, that's kind of, I think, what's led us to this point is the details and the schematics and all that stuff are usually handled through the electrical permit, as far as I know, on all of the site plans here. And what we show, even when it comes to the rest of the inverter pads and transformer pads, we just show the pad, that gets approved, and the rest of that stuff kind of gets dealt with by the electrical inspector.
see if, do we have any building codes for on-site power storage, large scale storage?
Not that I'm aware of, I mean, it's the first one that I
That's
got.
Something we could-
specific
so
that we
that's
should
something
take
we
a
should
look
probably-
at.
Then I'm sure the codes have something about it, but.
I just don't
what
wanna
it
do
is.
anything, I wanna make sure that we just don't get stuck with that we did something wrong, so, I mean,
So we can have a conversation with Kurt and.
Kurt,
and
wiring
Sure,
inspector,
Joe, get Joe involved, but, yeah, just a conversation. And then see where to go from there.
we wanna.
And I know you wanna order the equipment soon.
Yeah,
That's
but
kind of why
we-
you're pushing
yeah,
it,
no,
I understand that, but.
It's, part of the process, so understand that it has to be conversations, and glad to be here now as opposed to, when the batteries are up on the site talking about it, so.
We can get input from those people and see what they recommend.
Yep,
for us.
yep,
I-
that's
I
fine.
wanna
I think that's a great idea.
work
So we
along
want
with the
Kurt, the fire department?
fire department
and
and
the electrical inspector?
electrical
Yeah, you might as well,
inspector.
get Joe on that too,
Excuse me?
Just,
the electrical inspector.
Okay.
and it would be nice to
Just see
make
if he
this
has
part
concerns.
of the, solar plan, recommendation, so that this is something that's common.
When I can.
So,
Did you want the rendering of it as well, or?
yes,
Mhm.
please.
And the spec sheets on it and everything, what do we have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, I'll see what we have and make that available.
Should we just schedule them for the next meeting then?
Do we we have a couple of comments, is that all? We have a.
Question?
Question.
A couple of questions, two of them. The Colburn Road one,
where you were coming out onto Partridge Hill Road, you discussed a pad then and a battery, but it was only 6 feet, wasn't that a
No,
battery?
it wasn't a battery.
That wasn't a battery.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
All
have
right,
the
good.
Colburn plan here, but yeah,
That's okay.
that pad at the end of the road there on the right of way is just switch gear, standard stuff that goes with
I just
all
wondered.
arrays. But that, just for the board as well, you know, that's part of the same conversation, so we're gonna be having, you know, hopefully we can, whatever comes of that conversation can be applied to both. So that equipment pad was located here, we'd like to add a single battery on that, it's a smaller array, so, you know, that's part of the same ask.
Okay. And then as far as setback requirements, is that gonna be in the buffer zone? So it's just something to look at down the road, maybe? And then, the DOER, the next set of incentives, or actually it's been out, is battery storage. And some of them are huge. So just, it's something that we need to address on our bylaws, cause they could be, 50 feet tall, they can look like giant gas, spheres. There's many ways of storing it. And
Sure, I'm
so
sure.
there's a lot of money out there for now, the next step, because solar, it's great in the peak of the day, but they have to store it for when it's needed in the morning or at night in the busy hours. So the next wave of money, we're gonna see an influx of batteries. And so this is probably just the beginning. Everybody's gonna want these batteries. So if it's gonna be 10 feet tall, then we're gonna have to revisit, screening, setbacks, fire, driving to them.
The
on
aesthetics,
top of.
the aesthetics of the actual building, I mean, depending on
Yeah,
what it
and then
is.
also access, like, the fire chief wanted that driveway all the way around the property, so it's just as long as when you site them that you could get to them, and there's a
Yeah.
whole nother issue with it, so
We should
it's
continue
just
that.
morphing.
Is
We
your,
throw that back to the
your
solar
recommendation
subcommittee,
to
too.
the solar, on your subcommittee, is this something that you are looking at also?
Actually, I just read all about it today, I was trying to look ahead to see what's coming down the road. So some of the verbiage I need to change, so I was gonna bring it up at our next meeting. So, yeah, it's just really hard to stay on top of technology, and there's a lot out there that we weren't aware of, just like the loopholes in tax. There's things they know and we don't know, so we just have to stay one step ahead if it's possible.
Just, if I may, I just wanted, to your point, we are meeting tomorrow night and we're going over the bylaws. And just to circle back to the stormwater, if you could let the public know what they should do if they see a runoff and they think it's a problem, because as we know, I saw it on Facebook, but people really don't know the course of action, so if you could clarify that for the general public, I think they'd appreciate it.
I think it's always a good step. You can always call the planner, and it could be a Todd issue, it could be a highway issue, but I think this is a good start. Posted it on Facebook, has me go private message. It's great that you're submitting photos. Why don't you call, and we'll try to take.
The numbers are on our website.
So right on the website is all the contact information, so.
Yeah, I don't think Zuckerberg handles flooding issues, does he? In that park? No.
Try.
So,
He can afford to fix them.
I think it's
Thank you.
usually the solar people have their name with the site supervisor posted on the
site.
site themselves, and a 24-hour emergency number right there.
I don't think the residents know that, though, that's my point.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, because
Yeah.
they just post.
Is that, Sandra, there's the emergency?
I didn't realize that.
Even during
Yeah, they have
building,
to,
the
yeah.
building
I don't know if it's
process?
up, yeah,
I don't,
during-
I think when it's
some-
done, it
yeah.
probably is up, but not during the building process, maybe not, but.
That might be a bad idea, though, right?
There should be a 24-hour notice.
I obviously know
number.
too much about
I
this.
have
And his home phone number?
I mean, my cell phone's on and Bill is, I get plenty of calls. But we, to be honest, just to say,
I mean,
again,
that could be a good bylaw
responded
to
pretty
have-
quickly, I think.
have a
to
nice sign with
hopefully not
so-
impact
And it could
The
be where
neighbors
we
could have
post
that.
it on our website, we post the contact information for active projects. We could do that as something that we do internally, when you go to our website and if there's an active emergency process number, I'm sure all of the applicants would love that.
I'm not sure how we get that information out to the town, but I see what you mean.
Do the beavers answer their phone?
Okay, so I make a motion, we continue this to the next meeting, we continue this public hearing to the next
To
meeting
the
for the Colburn, the
Six,
Osgood
Right, we do all.
I think we have them on the next agenda.
Oh,
The
yeah,
20th.
oh, that's right.
To the 20th?
Yeah. Thank you. And if
All in
Oh, wait a
favor?
minute.
Second, all in favor?
Aye, there you go.
And if you would like anybody from Zero Point or ZPT to be there for any conversations between the board, Kurt, fire marshal,
Okay.
you know, feel free to let us know.
Okay. Get us that
We'll be there.
spec information and.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We have.
Being
We
40?
have an extension?
We have,
The TJ. Oh.
right,
TJ Solar?
Yeah.
The 740.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's it.
That's my fault. I think it should be in.
This is the TGA Solar.
Yep.
Sub-plan for Osgood.
Carpenter Hill?
I got Osgood, which one do you want to do first?
We just did Osgood Fitzgerald, this is Carpenter Hill.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, this is TJ.
Yes.
Yep, Carpenter. Okay.
This is the definitive subdivision?
So we have a
Mail?
continued public hearing for the TJ Solar Pillar LLC definitive subdivision plan on Carpenter Hill.
Hi, Frank Picari with Burton Engineering, representing the project. So subsequent to our initial kickoff meeting, we had some comments from Graves Engineering. We had responded to those comments, and on the 28th, I got some further comments. Another revision, responded to those. I believe those plans were overnighted on Wednesday, so they wouldn't have gotten to Mike until Thursday, so I don't know if you had a chance to provide any re-review comments on it. So we kind of run, I don't know, did you get a copy of the last response to comments letter?
Yeah,
Or-
is this the February 6th one?
There I have.
All right.
That was
Oh, that's
for
the
the
wrong one. That's
Borrego
Borrego.
modifications of the solar project.
That's not the site plan.
This is the,
Do we have the TJs?
the last comment letter I have from Mike is January 28th.
Yep. And so then I had provided a response January 30th.
Okay.
I have extra copies. I don't know if you didn't get that. I can give you
Sure.
copies. And so basically, I usually go line by line, but on this one, I just kind of took the outstanding issues on the last comment letter and just specifically addressed those comments rather than, like I said, it was about 30 comments or something like that. So I picked a lot of them were acknowledged, agreed, that type of thing. So I picked the ones that were relevant to address. I'll give you a minute to kind of go through those. Let them run through that. Again, you know, the solar is more of a zoning freeze. They don't plan on building this, but we still theoretically could build it, so understand that it needs to be at an acceptable standard for that. So
How do we wanna, do you have a copy of this too, the responses?
No.
But we don't have
I
Mike's.
gave you a copy of that.
You do?
Yeah, but I dropped it off. That's here.
Okay.
It was part of the document.
Oh, okay.
I gave you revised, I thought I did anyway. Should have. To give you updated stormwater calcs as well.
Okay. That's right, you did commit.
Yep. And we kind of went through it real quick. So one of the main things was the cul-de-sac radius and fire department, so we just made it compliant. So I'll just run through these real quick. So the K value, so basically the vertical curve, it's supposed to be a longer vertical curve to get the minimum K value for it, but it ends up just being a real long curve and a real long curve. So we're asking for a waiver on the vertical curve. It's not going to be a fast road, it's a 2-lot road. So we asked for a waiver on that. Cul-de-sac radius has been increased. The bounds we identified as granite, gave a detail for it. The vertical curve, again, we're asking for a waiver of the K value. We provided vertical curves. Initially we didn't. We added the vertical curves as being more compliant with the subdivision regs. The slopes in the right-of-way. So it was a little odd that you can't grade steeper than 3 to 1 anywhere for a subdivision. So I kept all the slopes within the right-of-way, basically even with the road. So they'd be whatever the road is, 10%, and then went 3 to 1 on the side slopes here, and then went 1 to 1 outside the right-of-way. So we're asking for a waiver of the grading requirements to allow the grading as shown, but there is nothing steeper than 3-to-1 within the right-of-way. So we are asking still for a waiver on that, to accommodate making up the grades. Let's see, the manhole was basically, the pipe was too steep, so we added another manhole getting to the basin. Pipe sizes correcting, limiting the drop manhole. So recharge, we are providing recharge in the basin, so that's why the outlet was off the bottom. So Mike's probably gonna comment that we need an under drain on it, so to me that's a construction detail that we're fine with. And then the rest we're just adding some notes. So overall design changes, again, the main one was the radius, increasing the radius to be compliant, getting the slopes that anything steeper than 3-to-1 outside the right-of-way. The basin didn't change all that much. Piping into it changed, but the overall alignment and everything looks generally the same as the approved plan.
How are you handling the 1-to-1 slope?
So stabilized riprap, and we provided a detail for that right here.
Can you describe that for us?
So it's large stones, basically. So because of the steep slope, if you have gravel, it's going to just erode off. So the riprap is machine-placed large flat stones. So we're calling for stones that are big enough that they aren't going to just slide and move around. So I think we call for 500 to 2,000 pound rocks. So substantial, not just dumping gravel on the side, substantial for the 1-to-1 slope.
And that requires a waiver?
I believe so, yes. Based on the subdivision, can't have any slopes greater than 3-to-1.
Do you have a guardrail around that?
I did not impose a guardrail. No, we basically have I think a 14-foot shoulder before we would get to it. That's a good point. Yeah, no, yeah, we probably should have a guardrail for the 1-to-1. That's a good point.
So Mike hasn't had a chance to issue comments on your.
On this latest one, no,
changes.
I got his letter the 28th, and so I got my response to his letter out the 30th, and got it in on the Wednesday prior, but he didn't get it till Thursday because we overnighted it to him. So, and I understand that he got other submittals that day as well. So, again, we'd love to close tonight with whatever conditions you feel comfortable with, but I understand if you don't feel comfortable with it, it doesn't affect the project necessarily. Again, it's for the zoning protection. They're not looking to build it. And so as long as we're active, I believe we have that zoning protection. So it doesn't hold anything up. And if you want to wait for Mike's comments to make sure we've
We don't
addressed
have any
everything.
deadlines or anything? Are we good or?
Right, as long as we're continuing the hearing, then it maintains the protection.
Yep.
Yep, and as far as deadlines, I would request the continuance to give you whatever time is required.
I'd
So
like
it's,
the Mike's acknowledgement on these.
So the solar project cannot go forward, I believe, until you approve this definitive plan to ensure that zoning freeze. But they're not ready to start yet. In fact, that's the next item of discussion as to changes to their solar plan that they want to make. So they're not ready to begin yet either. So
Okay, how's our schedule for next week? They're not on it?
I believe we put them on it. As a
Are they already on it for next week?
They are, yeah, they stay open until, they go on every
I
single
was
meeting.
continuing.
Okay.
so yeah, if it's just a week, then that's
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks,
Oh, 2 weeks.
next meeting.
I don't see that being a deal killer. People won't be happy with me, but not a deal killer. So.
So I make a motion that we continue this for 2 weeks, the Carpenter Hill Road definitive subdivision plan, 49 Carpenter Hill Road.
Before we do that, do we have to take comments from the public?
Do we have any comments from the public on this? Okay.
Okay.
Motion's made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stick around for a minute because
You're on next?
You're gonna keep looking at this. So.
Okay.
Just in case there's any background questions.
So you have two two reports in your packet. One is dated January 25th from Mike, and the next is dated February 6th, which came in today. So what happened is, for the solar site plan that you approved for this Carpenter Hill Road site, is a new owner and solar developer now who wants to make some modifications to the plan. And initially, Mike and I thought that maybe we could just do this as field changes, because they weren't that significant. But Mike was sort of uncomfortable. There are some significant changes to the site plan, so we thought it would be best to go before the planning board to see whether you wanted to either let us handle it internally or require a modification of the plan. So I think that's the discussion tonight, is to just see what they're proposing to do and whether you want to reopen the public hearing on that.
I mean, if Mike is uncomfortable with it, I think
So
that.
let's hear it out
We can
first.
hear it
Yeah,
out
go
and
ahead.
then.
Good evening, I'm Dean Smith from Borrego Solar, here for the TGA project, which we're taking over. It's located at 49 Carpenter Hill Road. Our site plan is largely compliant with what was approved previously. The limit of work is the same, the roads are in the same locations, stormwater features are in the same locations. We are reducing the amount of site grading that's required, so it'll compress the construction time frames. There'll be less earth disturbance involved with the construction. The utility has done a full review of our interconnection at this point, and they've recommended a different point of interconnection, so that is one change on this plan from what you had seen before. We do have an energy storage system, so that might have been where you had heard the discussion previously. It's clearly indicated on our site plan. It's set back in the furthest portions of the system from the roadway. Just to take a look at the overall site plan, I'll show you where that's located. So this is Carpenter Hill Road out here, Southbridge Road in the rear. This, whoops, that's just a tree clearing. Let me show you the site plan instead. So these internal roads are in the same locations that they were previously, the water management features. So we'll enter off of Carpenter Hill Road. We have a small equipment pad area here. This larger one back here is where the energy storage system is located. And it's similar to what the other applicant was describing to you. It's about a 50-foot long enclosure. There are access doors all along the sides, so the battery units are sealed. They're in racks that are sealed, and then the container is a rated container as well. There is an automatic fire suppression system in there, so if there's any rise in temperature, it detects it, it automatically goes off. Electrical fires, the fire department needs to have access, but they don't extinguish those with water, so it's automatically extinguished by the systems that are in the container there. Over here near Sturbridge Road is the new interconnection location that we've been directed by the utility to provide. There'll be just a short turnaround off the roadway there. We've made most of what would have been the pole mounted equipment. We're going to do pad mounted equipment, so it's lower to the ground. Those are locked cabinets. They're 5 feet tall at the top of those containers. There are a couple of new poles that go along with it. There's been some discussion about the adjacent residents here along Sturbridge Road. So
Sturbridge or Southbridge Road?
Southbridge, sorry.
Okay.
And we prepared a cross section, which I'll give you a reduced copy of that so that you can see it a little more clearly. But between the residence and the new equipment, there's actually a bit of a rise. So there won't be a clear sight line between the residence and the equipment.
Good. You got,
There should be enough copies for everyone.
And that's an existing natural buffer there? Or is
It
that something
is.
you're proposing?
Yes,
That's
this is all
existing.
existing vegetation. We'll just be clearing a small area for the turnaround and the new equipment. Most of the vegetation between the residence and our new access point is evergreen, so it'll be retaining its foliage in the winter time. So we took a look at that. But if you look on the right-hand side of the drawing, the residence is shown on the left-hand side of that cross-section. And if you take a sight line from the residence, you see the hilltop, and you don't have any view over to where that equipment is located. And we did receive a comment letter that we responded to on January 31st. So you should have the response in your package. And there were 7 comments in that. I can go through them in detail if the board is interested. Most of them were pretty minor. Some of it centered around this new interconnection location. So if the board prefers, I can step through those things.
Are you referring to Mike's letter that came in today, February 6th?
No, I have not seen that.
Okay.
I'm referring to our response to the
initial
earlier
response,
letter.
okay.
Yeah, to the letter of
So he
January
has-
25th.
He has responded to your.
Okay, so he did respond
Right.
today.
And there was one, there was just one concern he had?
Well, the comment number 2, I think, was something that he was concerned about.
Thank you.
So he says the plan now proposes a gravel driveway and equipment area off Southbridge Road on the southerly end of the property frontage. This appears to place it near the abutting home and property of Bertrand. The location of the house on this property shall be shown on the plan in order to evaluate any potential impacts. It should be noted that this proposed gravel area would require tree clearing to the common property line. And then in his letter dated today, I think Mike feels that it's been addressed pretty well. The engineer responds that the elevation of the house and tallest piece of equipment is about the same, about a 4-foot differential, with a ledge outcropping in the wooded area on the property that is about 10 feet higher. Thus, the engineer claims that very little of the equipment will be visible from the abutting home. Then he goes on to say that they're preparing a section, which I think is what you
That's the
presented tonight,
section that we just provided.
to demonstrate the above statements. It's ultimately up to the board as to whether they feel this proposed work warrants a new public hearing or can be handled as an administrative field change. GI has no engineering related issues with the proposed design.
Do we have any abutters, or have they been notified, or
Would
any comments?
butters be notified for this?
No.
No, they wouldn't be.
No, they wouldn't have been made aware of this change.
But at the original site plan, if this was proposed, they would have been.
Correct.
So, you know,
Bothers me a little bit.
yeah, you know, to throw a change like this in after the opportunity for abutters to discuss it because they weren't included in the original plan or wasn't part of the original plan, I think
I don't think, it makes me
we
feel.
should give them the opportunity.
I mean, it shouldn't be anything huge, super
yeah.
expensive.
But at least they can't say they weren't given the opportunity, afforded the opportunity to ask
We
questions.
wouldn't need a whole new stormwater or anything like that, it would just be,
Just a public hearing, just to
Yep.
allow them the chance to talk if they wanted to.
So the clearing would go right up to the property line?
For that
That's gonna-
interconnection point,
that
yes, it
interconnection point.
is close to the property corner there because of the proximity to the pole that they want us to interconnect with.
How many butters are there, do we know?
I don't know about the entire parcel. There's just one residence that's affected by what we have proposed.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at.
And it is shown on the plan. So it's over 200 feet from any of the
This
equipment.
property line, it's right up against the property line, so they're clearing that all out. You did say that was a ledge in there or some sort of
There's ledge
or-
and there's a rise between the residence and that location.
You know, I'm not sure it's usable land anyways, or clearable, you know, for them to.
I mean, to have a one, you know, a short public meeting, let the abutters know.
Yep.
I think that is
Just give them an
the-
opportunity to comment.
That is the correct thing to do.
Would it be worth sending the affected abutter a
what
letter
I'm
just
thinking.
stating, so you're aware, this project is changing, blah, 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 this is a copy of the new plan.
Do
If
you
have
have
any
any
questions,
concerns?
please call, if you would like us to schedule a public hearing so you can address them, please let us know, please respond by date, blah, 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 and send it certified. That way we know they got it, they know they, because if it's certified, they're guaranteed to, not guaranteed, but they're not gonna think it's junk mail or something and put it aside, as I tend to do. And that way, rather than have this big to-do, if it's only one person's affected, let's reach out directly to that person, because the other problem is we might host a public hearing, they don't realize they're affected because they said, oh no, I've already gone through the meetings, I don't need to do anything, and they don't show up, or maybe they're busy that night. If they know they're affected, then they can make those arrangements, good, bad, or indifferent. Or they might not care and say, you know what, I've seen it, I don't care, I don't plan to do anything, I'm fine.
But they need that opportunity.
But they need the opportunity to
So
say
the
that.
entrance to Carpenter Hill Road on Southbridge Road is north of this? Is kind of north. Let me just, I'm trying to get an idea of where this is.
And question while you're looking for that, do you know the address of the affected abutter? I was trying to find a number.
I don't have it right in front of me,
Okay.
but we could certainly do that. And we'd be happy to reach out to them as well to provide any information that they want in order to determine what the impacts on the property.
And if
So the entrance at Carpenter Hill Road is here. There's the interconnection point on.
So Carpenter Hill Road comes down to
Snake Hill
Southbridge
Road.
Road. What's that?
Snake Hill Road.
Snake Hill, oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
The roller coaster twisty turn.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
Never should have been approved road.
Where was zoning?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Before
Okay.
1958.
Just trying to get an idea of where this exists.
Where it
This is
exists.
for me. That's all.
Can I comment?
Sure.
So Frank Bucari, Burton Engineering, we had done the original permitting on it, and I know when we were at the original public hearings, the one butter that spoke up at the public hearings was this guy over here, and he had a well, and so we ended up we were coming up kind of close to the property line, just picking the closest point or the narrowest wetland crossing, and we ended up moving it over to stay away from his well. So through that public hearing process, that's the only abutter feedback that we got that we had to react to, was that well. Otherwise, there wasn't.
So it
really-
shouldn't be a problem sending it out to the
Right.
person.
I just wanted to bring that up,
Thank
so, you know, it was advertised and everything, and that was the one abutter that did show up at the meeting, had something, we reached out
Do
to
we
him,
have how
addressed
many
it.
abutters that do we
So-
have the list of how many abutters there are?
Right now, you want
Yeah, you have it,
Well,
when we submitted it, when we
it's
when we
easy to
filed the
get.
original application, so you'd
yeah,
have, you'd have.
we
the
have it.
original
I do
application.
have it, yeah.
I
Um,
don't
I think he
think
has
have
the
that
name
one.
on here, so.
Does the board feel comfortable doing it and doing it like that and reaching out, or do they wanna do a short public hearing?
Oh, you're right, I apologize.
Yep, I'm comfortable with that. I think that's
As long as
probably
we
better
have
wording. We
this
don't need to open it up for a full public
certi-
hearing, but if this,
certified
at
mail?
least give
Yes.
this,
Yes.
at least give this abutter the opportunity to see the plan and.
So,
Right.
as long as we can resolve things with that affected owner,
Mhm.
That's fine.
in coordination with your planner, then we would consider this a minor modification, and then we can provide a final plan set that can be held in your files as the record copy for the project.
I'd be,
So is this something we should approve with conditions now, or with that condition, or is it, or do we wait?
I think
Well,
we
if
need
you're
to
gonna
wait to see
send
what
it to the abutter, I think you should wait until
Okay.
we do that.
So do we have a motion to reach out to, the normal list of abutters that would have received it if it was a public hearing?
Do we wanna do all of them?
I don't think we need to.
I don't think we need to, because
I
if
just
only
think the affected
Bertrand is
butter.
being affected.
Looking
Yeah,
at
the
the plan, they look
balance
like
of
they're
the
the.
project is laid out very similarly to what was presented before. The roads are in the same place, the stormwater. We've reduced the amount of grading, so there's less impact that other abutting property owners would be affected by. So it's really just this interconnection area that would have any impact that would be external to the project.
If that's the only thing that's changing, I'm comfortable with just reaching out to that one direct abutter.
I would agree.
Okay.
And invite you want to see if they wanna come to the next meeting, or?
I think either that or, you know, working out an agreement with the
Okay.
developer, and
So,
if they can.
okay,
if
so
they-
you wanna handle this between Mike and I?
Sure.
Okay.
That's
Can
fine.
we just make sure
Certified
we
letters going
get
out to
something
everybody.
from them in writing that they're happy to, like
Right,
something?
that they have no objection to this.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so we'll just work through Bill
Yep.
and Graves Engineering on that.
Okay.
Do we need a vote to do that, or do we wanna just?
Well, no, I mean, if
wait?
you're not, if you don't think it needs a modification of the site plan, they've already got an approved site plan.
Okay.
So they're all set.
Yeah, if the board gives the approval for the planner to take the action, unless there's some other further concern raised.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We have just an extension request?
Yep. So, you had asked for a couple of things. One was a bond reduction. And so Mike, you have in your packet, note from Mike, agreeing to a smaller amount of a bond reduction than I think Tim was looking for, but Mike.
Well, I spent all the money, and shouldn't I know if there's an increase in all these other things?
Point taken, but, you know, Mike is concerned about the town having enough money to cover the cost should the town need to take it over.
Well, I'm concerned about how much money I put out expecting to get it back, and I get 1/14 of what I spent.
Right, so Mike is recommending a reduction of 4,000. Tim had some documentation showing about 45,000 that he spent since our last discussion on this topic, so, it's a question of, whether you want to go with Mike's estimate and allow this $4,000 reduction.
I don't see the information in the packet.
No,
What's-
I don't
What's the
either.
total, what's the total
Might have
outstanding
been mailed
bond?
out to you or.
The calculation is based on, Mike's calculation is based on the remainder of the work left. So if right now, everybody walks away and the town had to complete it, that calculation is based on what it would cost the town to complete that project,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
So what is the reduction amount?
$4,000.
Right. I went by Mike's numbers based on what I put into this project. And all of a sudden, all these numbers disappeared, and he comes up with 4,000.
Well,
To me,
according to
that's
this
not a
thing,
fair
it's,
thing.
that's the net change from December, oh, never mind.
No, he took
December
out the-
2017, I thought it was December 2018. Okay, sorry.
But we had done a bond reduction a couple of months ago, which was a significant amount of money.
Yes.
Um,
And it's all his numbers, they're not made up numbers by me. Okay, you guys told me how much to put into this bond, that money is there. I spent my money to get it to the point, everybody got paid. Supposed to get that money back, I don't get that money back, how does that work?
Well,
It's a
he
start.
says that there are increases in prices. so
Shouldn't I
that-
be notified of that? Shouldn't the bank be notified of that?
Well, I mean, he's done the calculation, so there is the notification.
Well, I mean, if you went to work and didn't get paid because, someone said that's not what it's worth, that wouldn't work for you guys. I'm sorry, that's a lot of money. And you're saying I'm not progressing with the subdivision. No, I am progressing, but then I can't get my money back. Where do you want me to go from here?
Now, I thought they had to give the bank notification if there's gonna be any difference in cost, because typically, from my understanding, the bank has to be notified first, so that they can deal with that appropriately. So shouldn't he have let and I'm just asking, from my experience, shouldn't he have let the bank know that there was going to be a difference? Whoever made the determination that there was going to be a difference, whether it be Mike, whether it be.
We can't have Mike be contacting banks.
But I mean, if he's going to change dollar figures, someone has to let the bank know, because now the project's changing.
I think it's all about
So
the
it's
contractor.
up to the board really to decide whether the bond reduction is warranted based on Mike's
Okay.
analysis, and
Mike's-
then
Mike
we
is-
notify the
the
bank.
calculation-
I see, so it hasn't been official yet until we
Right.
make it so, okay.
So the
fair enough.
calculation is based on, ignore everything else, what he feels that the rest of the, if at this very moment, at this point when this calculation was done, if the contractor walks away, this is
Right.
what it's going to cost the town to complete the project. And we have always, relied on Mike for these, calculations, so.
When was the original bond agreement reached? So from what point did we drop by $4,500? What time frame? I don't have any of the documentation, so I apologize.
Oh, I'm using,
Done and I found it.
Net change from 12/14/17,
So, in a year?
year and a half, almost
Okay.
17 to 18 a year.
but Mike's saying that the cost of materials, the cost of.
Can I see that for a
the
second? I'm
equipment-
just curious. Thank you.
Well, when was the last bond reduction? That was just,
Yeah, it's on the last page.
Mike, Bill, is there any reason to question, Mike's calculation?
I don't believe so. You know, I believe Mike tracks these very carefully, and he keeps track of price escalations.
Because I'm correct in that it doesn't, even if 2 years ago, it could be $1 million to finish a project, but we could be here today and it might cost, $3 million if that's what the labor market was, correct? In cost of the materials that you need.
So part of the problem is, the town has to charge prevailing, or the town contractors have to pay them prevailing wages, whereas Tim doesn't.
But shouldn't someone be notified of price increases? I do this stuff every day. My prices have not gone up like this for what I put in there. I know what my costs are.
So on December 4th, 2017, Mike had an estimate of a reduction of $267,000, which brought it down to the $377 figure that you have, and the board approved that reduction at that time.
Thank you.
still on schedule for completion,
Excuse me?
still on schedule for completion in
As soon as
March.
the weather breaks.
Start of April.
Broke yesterday.
I wish it was all like that, trust me, it was beautiful. I think it's gonna be an early spring.
There's a burden that agrees with you.
Calculation or something.
I think Tim has done has done some significant work up there, which unfortunately isn't reflected in this price reduction, but we do know that he's making progress.
I just wanna make sure that the town is protected. I don't think you're walking away, but we always have to make all of our decisions based on the, worst case scenario.
So it looks like
At
it was
the
an
last-
increase of $62,000 for inflation or excess costs, so that's kind of why.
The market's so hot and labor is so high right
That took
now.
away
and-
part of that, so I
But
sympathize.
it's one of these things, so much was put away per house. If this changed, I should have been notified. More money should have been put away. I
How-
shouldn't be taking money out of my pocket to pay the bills that
How
I've already
often
put away.
we don't ever calculate these unless the contractor comes to us and they want a bond reduction, correct? So, we don't normally just calculate these in the
I was gonna
meantime
ask
or
that,
anything, so.
You
we
came to
wouldn't-
us looking for a reduction, right? That's what
Yeah.
triggered the whole thing?
So we
No, I
would-
spent a lot of money and I want my money back. That's what I want. Okay, that's my money in that bank account.
Mm-hmm.
And I do.
But there's also remaining work to be done.
A lot of the remaining work.
And
How
we
do I
have to be
know I'm gonna
covered.
get my money?
How do we know the
Because-
town's
well,
gonna
how
get
do I
their
know?
money?
You're going on his word, I'm going on my word. I'm the one that put in all this work, labor,
Well,
and
he's got it
materials.
spelled out as to,
Well,
or
I think
whatever
as
he
things get
does.
completed, that money will be released.
I completed them and all of a sudden he raised all the other prices.
And this was started the what,
This
back
is,
in 2007?
we all agreed on a fixed amount for a bond, that's what I put in that account.
I believe
And I was
this
supposed
is-
to be
This is an old subdivision that I believe
Yes.
Tim acquired several years
Yes.
ago. It
No,
may do
it sat
quite a
there for
while.
11 years and
Yes.
did nothing, and nobody said anything.
No.
So you didn't get a bond, you put your own money up for this bond? You didn't go to a bonding company to bond?
No, it's a tri-party agreement, which everybody agreed to, a fixed amount, he gave it to us, that's what we put in there. That money, I shelled out all this money, all these guys that have done all this work, all this material has been paid for. And then he comes back with, oh, well, everything else went up, so we're not giving you money back.
So you reserve money for each lot you sold to?
Yes, correct. I mean, how do I know I'm gonna get the rest? How do I go forward?
When the project is completed, you'll get
How
the
do I
entire
know that?
bond.
Or
Because
does he keep raising his things and changing
I mean,
things?
when-
Well, I need to know that.
when the project is done and there's nothing left, you
Well,
have to
these
get
things,
all of your money.
these things are all done, and I don't get my money.
So,
I raised all the structures, I put in guardrails, I gravelled
You're
all
looking
the
at that,
sidewalks.
but I'm looking at it that there's X number to be done.
And I
that's
did
what-
X number of this. I spent all this money. This board agreed to how much money to put in there,
Okay,
okay?
yeah.
That's what we all agreed on. I put all that in. I did all these projects to get this place further along, to get to a completion.
Mhm.
That money is mine, it should be given back to me.
Is that a legal point? I mean.
So which of
or-
these line items do you
He took
claim
them all out.
are complete, oh, so the ones that you completed, he took out and
Yeah.
he raised, okay.
Well, he doesn't look at that. He
Sure,
looks
yep.
at
What's-
this
what's
very
left?
point, at this very point, this is what needs to be done. And if the contractor walked away today,
Yep.
this is how much it's going to cost the town to finish the project. And
That's
that's the
correct.
calculation. It doesn't take anything else
No.
as a factor at all. The only factor is
Right.
that the
This
town.
is left to do and X
the
number of
town-
hours to do it.
It's the town, it would be the town's liability if the money wasn't there. So it's to protect the town. And I always feel bad for I do feel bad, but our decision really needs to.
I just don't know if I'm gonna get my money.
If the project's done, you will.
How can you say that? I've done all these projects in that bond,
Because
and
we're
I'm
holding
not getting
some
my money.
hundred-
Well,
What is left to be done?
There are other things that have still left to be done. I mean,
So-
there's-
Of course,
there's got bonding
but the
costs.
ones I did
So it's the
are
town
not in
version.
there.
Is the question that, is the question that Mike is saying things aren't done and they are done? Is that the question?
I'm
No.
not hearing that. I'm not hearing that.
So is
No,
there
he
anything,
came- We walked the whole subdivision.
Okay.
okay, so is there
When I
anything,
came- go ahead.
is there anything on this list that you claim is done that's not done yet? That you claim is done, that's
From
still on
his
this list?
latest one that he
Yes.
raised everything?
Yes.
No.
Yes, okay. So all these things still left to be completed. These are the costs that it's gonna
This
cost to complete those things?
And it's
That's what
it's
that
at the
bond
town
needs to
cost.
stay with,
What the town, what it would cost the town to do it, so the town needs to pay the union prevailing
Prevailing
wages,
wages, right.
and that's just.
I'm
that's
sorry, the
factors
cost
in.
of a tree did not double
Yes.
over the last year.
Does that factor in the prevailing wage?
Mike's
portion?
estimate does, yes.
This has nothing to do with prevailing wage. Cost of a tree did not double over the last year, okay?
To install it too.
No, I understand that.
And labor has increased
Okay.
significantly.
You know, I have all my quotes from all these guys where I was trying to get this paved last year, the sidewalks, the berms, everything else. And now everything's been raised up.
I would be interested to see what the old values were for these
There you
things. You've got that.
A lot of them aren't even in there. You can see the ones with the arrows that have gone up.
That's fine, what was the original?
He has it written in right there.
Were they on the original?
That's the last time I got a disbursement, that's the what I got left, okay? And then he removed the raised the structures, he removed the guardrail. The guardrail cost me twice of what he's trying to give her a release today.
Yeah, but like I said, the release isn't about what you've done, it's what's left to be done.
It's the amount of money I've spent that I was supposed to get back.
No, it's the
Okay,
the
then this is
bond.
gonna be a legal matter.
Right, the reason why the bond exists like I
I
said,
understand all
if
that.
you walked away, what it would cost the town
I
to
totally
complete the
understand,
project,
and you
every
told me what the
contractor-
exact number of that bond was, and that's what I put into that account.
But that calculation was also done a couple of years ago.
Correct.
And-
years ago.
Yeah, of
Dale,
course.
forgive my ignorance because this is not my area of expertise, but much like a construction loan, do the bonds work for the contractors? Doesn't matter if it's, so if they get an extension or whatnot. To Tim's point, and I'm asking because I don't know legally. So if you tell me that I have to do 1, 2, and 3, and when I do 1, 2, and 3, I'm gonna get my $3,000 back, is that the same way the bonds work? No.
The
So,
bond is calculated based on the town's liability.
okay, but
The bond exists because the town needs to protect itself in case the contractor walks away. So the only factor is, at this very time, if they walked away today, right now, this is what it would cost the town, and we need to have that as our insurance policy
okay.
there, and Mike's calculation is based on that.
So do we re-review every ongoing subdivision every single year to account for that?
No, it's the contractor would come to us and say, we've done this much, can you please recalculate for us? And then we
Okay.
would do a bond release.
So it's not release
We've
the
always-
bond of what I've spent, it's recalculate what's left.
And that, the way, that has been done since I've been on the board, 17 years ago, forever, so I don't know if there's better practice. I don't know
Yeah,
what.
no, this is the way, it's been done.
And precedent
And still is
was,
being done. Okay.
Yes.
I haven't, maybe I wasn't paying attention and maybe nobody ever complained. I don't recall anyone coming back saying, listen, you've reduced my bond now, you're trying to take money away from me, not give it to me. Is that common practice when they recalculate to then add funds there, or in this case, take funds back a little bit?
I don't remember
Well,
ever adding.
Yeah, I don't think, it's possible, but I
Right.
don't think it's ever happened.
Okay.
So if I would've done this work sooner, I still wouldn't get my money back.
If you had, Mike had done the calculation before the inflation kicked off.
No, I mean, when
Yeah.
I first started this, cause you guys have been,
Right.
telling me it's gotta go faster
Right,
for
yeah.
years now. So if I had done it sooner, it still wouldn't come back to me.
It's kind of based on percentage of completion, sort of, too, like, if
No,
it's
I looked at every
Yeah.
other subdivision you have going in town, and they all ended a dirt road with no turnaround or anything else. What's going on with all those? Cause mine, I have 2 lots left. I'm ready to pave, gravel, and be done with it. What about all the other subdivisions?
I don't know, do we have subdivisions? I mean, before,
There are a lot of old subdivisions that were
old
just sort of.
subdivisions before, that we used the
And
new
this money is
standards.
sitting there, how come they haven't been completed by the town?
There's no developer who's actively working on them.
Well, you just said, if I don't finish, the town finishes.
If the town were to take that project over, the town would complete the subdivision.
Are there bonds on those subdivisions that are sitting there?
There may not be, there may have been covenants.
How does that work?
Prior to-
Policies.
Or if someone goes bankrupt, aren't those then taken? If the builder goes bankrupt,
So
and
the-
They would take the bond, too.
That's what I thought,
Right.
that's
So there's-
exactly my point.
Usually it's a covenant to start with, and then when the developer asks to release lots, there's a replacement of the
Mhm.
covenant with a fund
Sure.
of some sort.
Okay.
And that has to be enough to cover the cost
Right.
of the work.
I
On
mean,
the
these
subdivision.
places come to an end, there's not even a turnaround to turn your car around. And you're saying, if I was to walk away, you have all this money. These other guys never completed anything, walked away,
If
and
those
nothing
were
gets
old
finished.
subdivision
declared
standards.
This is an old subdivision, 2003 was when it was approved.
But all those lots have been released in your project, right? I mean, you can build on those remaining lots.
Yes? No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Whatever covenants.
we gotta have some standard things here instead of,
Right.
we make it up as we go. Cause I can't work that way.
I don't think we're making it up as we go. I see no evidence of that.
Well, you still haven't answered why these other ones aren't done and why the money isn't there.
If you give me specifics, we can look into it.
Lambs off of Brookfield Road.
Which one, we
Ponican
got a
Hill.
couple of different lambs.
Yeah, it's a subdivision right across from the storage places. There's 4 houses in there, the road ends after that, nothing else is done. Ponican Hill, sidewalks aren't complete, street lights aren't up. It goes to the top of the hill, it stops. Ellie Pond goes halfway around, the road's dirt, there's a bunch of equipment sitting there.
So, I can tell you, number one, if people don't complain,
I was thinking that too.
and highway and
Yeah, the Ellie
and
Pond project
buildings.
is part of the water improvement project, so that, the contractor doing the water project will be paving that road once the water line is installed.
But it's still a subdivision not complete.
Correct, right.
And you're telling me this one has to be complete, otherwise we got the money to do it. It's just not right.
Well, we're still holding money on those other ones?
I don't know, I'd have to check.
If there
Yeah.
was a bond issued, we probably, we may be.
Right.
But if we're not aware,
Correct.
if we don't have somebody coming in and banging on our door and saying, hey.
Was that public knowledge? Because I'd like to know.
Make the
About-
developer.
Yeah, I can look in the files.
I'd
and
like to know.
Let you know.
When there's a lot of water damage or whatever happens, the only way we know anything is that they come to us and the residents.
No, I plan on completing this project, so one way or the other, I will get my money, but it's just not right the way you're doing it. Okay? If that was increased, I still should get that money back, and then when I sell the next house, that should be raised up. Just like it was right from the start when we put money in from the first house.
So, I know you're working hard to finish this, you'd be getting this $373,000 back in short order then, once you complete the remaining work.
I hope so.
Yeah, as soon as if the project's done,
I understand
you get
how that
everything,
works,
you get everything
okay?
back.
I understand that, but this is not the right way to do it. It's like you have someone do it and you say, I'll pay the bill, but I don't have the money right now. And that's what I could have to say to these subs if I didn't have the money, okay? Because you want it done. I did it, I had enough money to pay them, but I should be getting it back.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
Our job is to not place liability on the town, and this is standard practice in all our projects. Every contractor has to go through it.
What was your original request for bond return?
I know I'm all over $50,000. Because his costs don't even take into account all the engineering done for the roadways, for all the gravel, for everything else. So that's probably not even enough money to complete the place, just so the town knows. Okay, you put all he's like, up here for you guys, and let me tell you, these numbers are not close.
So what are you saying, this isn't enough?
Nope, that's what I'm saying.
Should we raise it? Just kidding.
Well, I don't need the 4,000, that ain't gonna change my life.
Well, I guess, I would recommend we stay with Mike's numbers. He's confident and does this all the time.
So do I. Okay? So do I. And I'm there every day. Is Mike there every day? No.
Do we want to vote to release the 4,000?
Yes.
Do we have a motion to release $4,004 in accordance with Mike's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
We also need a request to extend the annual extension letter from Tim.
I'll make a motion to extend it.
Do we have
To what date?
Usually we go year by year.
What's the next date?
But when was this?
This one that expires,
By the way, this is the numbers that Tim gave me for the work that he's done. Jane, you have that?
That's only based on his
No,
numbers.
because he wasn't gonna.
That includes no engineering costs or anything else, surveying.
I just want to say the correct date that it's being
I know,
extended to.
yeah.
So February 15th.
So, do we have a motion to approve the annual extension to
moved.
February 15th,
20.
second,
2020?
2020 from 1 year. Second.
All in favor?
Hopefully, we think you'll be done by then anyway, but that's,
Yep.
should give you
Aye.
enough time.
And then we'll be able to release the whole entire thing.
Okay, so all set?
We look forward to
Yes, thank
releasing the
you.
whole entire thing.
We do.
Thank you.
We really do.
All right, thank you.
So we have the Jennings Road extension and accessory recognition.
I think that went out in your packet. And again, Mike, so in this subdivision, they're asking for a release of lot 11 are from covenant, and the practice is to replace that covenant with a sum of money necessary to complete the road. And Mike has given an estimate of, did anybody bring that with them? I have it here somewhere.
No, you have it,
Yeah, that's what I had.
You have it?
10,215?
Yes.
Does that sound right?
So we would ask then the Jennings Road subdivision developer to provide that sum of security in return for releasing the lot.
Oh, okay.
So it's the opposite direction, they need to provide that.
Yes.
They need to provide this much more to us?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they need to provide that sum in order for you to release the lot.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so we just need to make a motion.
Mhm.
So moved. All in favor? I'm sorry, second?
So, I'm sorry, so, can I see that
Yeah,
just
I'm
for a
sorry.
minute?
So in order to release the lot to be built on, they need to provide that bond.
Okay.
It could be a deposit of money or some financial security.
Either cash or a.
Sure.
Right.
Surety.
Surety bond. Okay.
I'll second.
And
All
then
in
again, it's
favor?
based on Mike's review of the cost to complete the road in front of that lot.
We're just in front of that lot.
And there is a binder of pavement for about 100 feet on that lot already, so that provides access to the lot for construction purposes.
Okay. Was there a motion?
Yep, in a second.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just,
Oh.
is this standard operating procedure? You don't require contractors to get a bond to bond the whole project? You just let them release and give them stipends as they go for each lot?
It goes either way,
Yeah.
depends how aggressive they are in doing the work.
Mhm.
But they have the option, they could,
Yes.
they could pay all
Right,
at
so they
once.
can't build on any of the lots that are under covenant until they provide the money to the
So that's how
town.
the project stops with a dead road, because they're not
Right.
selling a house, and
Right.
so we're not gonna pave any of the road.
Right.
Eventually, they do.
Right, certainly you could phase a project so that you could require a small amount of money for the work that's required to complete the road, rather than doing it sort of lot by lot.
Similar to what we did with Hammond Woods.
Mhm.
So is that a, is that a
That was the one that was just.
requirement that we could enforce?
Well, we haven't, approved any subdivisions in a long time.
Right.
These are all old ones that
Yeah.
we're trying to clean up. So you could handle it differently if someone were to come in with a new subdivision.
Yeah, we don't have problems with the new subdivision really, being
Right.
done, because they just wanna build it and.
Right. We're not seeing haven't had any new subdivisions in a long time.
How many subdivisions out there that
That's a good question.
are unfinished?
I don't know.
Good question.
Quite a few. We had
Quite a
one,
few.
you pulled out one from,
Oh, that one you had the other day.
I don't know when that was, that was from the
I
80s,
like-
I
from the
think.
80s.
Yeah.
I like having a big bond that kind of forces them to.
Right.
They look at it a little bit different.
Yeah, they do look at it a little bit different.
Problem is, a lot of these guys go bankrupt too, and then poof, the money's gone, so you can't do anything.
Well, they,
Yeah, there was a time.
remember on the bonds, remember the like back and forth, the suits, remember when Alan was here and we had, they were fighting, the bankruptcy court
Yes.
was fighting
Oh.
for the bond, remember that?
Yeah.
And we had to,
Yeah.
we had to write a letter saying, no, you can't have our bond because that's the town's bond. And then they had to complete the requirements to get it.
Mhm.
All right.
So we have Miss.
Right.
Extension?
We do have a request. So this Masonic Woods Way, remember we had some questions how serious they were about going forward with this project. They submitted it back in December, I think, and then they thought they would withdraw, which would have put them in a bind because they needed to get the definitive plan approved to maintain their zoning freeze protection. So if they had withdrawn, then they would have lost that freeze. now, instead they have, decided that they do wanna go forward with the plan review, so they've asked for an extension. You know,
Where is this?
Solar call,
Oh, okay.
protecting solar.
Okay.
So this vote's more just a formality to let them keep on trucking.
yeah, so the letter states, CPT Energy Solutions 2 LLC respectfully requests an extension of time on the definitive subdivision application for Masonic Woods Way, in which to have a public hearing and take final action beyond the 90-day period, and to allow the planning board to file the certificate of action with the town clerk by April 1st, 2019. The application is for the definitive plan entitled Masonic Woods Way, dated November 20th, 2018, for property located off Masonic Home Road and Burlingame Road, owned by Masonic Home Inc. The plan was submitted to the planning department on November 20th and was accepted as submitted by the planning board on November 28th. So we have 90 days to act on a plan, so we were running up against the clock. Otherwise, it would have been approved, had a constructive approval on it. So I asked them to file this extension to remove that,
Okay.
that unfortunate outcome. So this gives you enough time to, I think we have it on, we've advertised it for the 20th. So we'll open the hearing then, and then according to this letter, they would like an answer by April 1st.
I make a vote to extend the subdivision.
Yeah, second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I just do the payroll?
Yeah.
We have Jane's payroll, in the amount of $827.20 for the dates, the pay period ending 2/28/2019. We need a vote to vote, right?
So
Do we have a motion to?
Make a motion, we approve those.
Second.
All in
Payroll.
favor?
Aye.
Is it actually required with the signatures to have a real vote? Is that the legal thing to do? Can we not?
Yeah.
A legal vote?
But we only need one person to sign now. That changed a while ago.
Right.
Thank you, thank you. Does John sign this?
Yep.
Do we have anything else to discuss? Well,
I had sent you a couple of things, do you have any comments?
Annual report.
The
Annual
annual
report,
report.
right.
I put it in your packet for this evening, if you hadn't had a chance to look at it.
When is this due?
Next one, I think.
Yeah, we have a while.
Right.
But it's good to get it done.
It's nice because it shows all the work that you've done over the past year. There's a lot of activities that took place last year.
So also the planning board official policy for public records, is that just something we need to agree on, or is that just something we?
We had talked about doing
Okay.
something about that. That's, if you wanna, we can schedule that as an agenda topic for the next meeting if you like.
you know, complaint amounts?
Yeah, so we need, the other piece was getting the figures into the capital budget so that we can make a request for funding for the zoning recodification and then the master plan following that. So I'm prepared to just send in those numbers to the town administrator and capital planning committee, or the finance committee, to get that process in motion.
Aren't these amounts just astronomical?
Yes.
Go through this. Heard anything from Green Gold Group
Yes.
about a recreational or adult
They're
use?
on our agenda for the 20th.
Are they?
Are they?
Yep.
Yes.
That's what I was told.
To amend their site plan?
Discussion.
But just.
We haven't heard from them, so I reached out and asked them to come just to give the board an update. So it's not a formal submission it's just, you know, you get to ask them what they're doing, what their time frame is, and I think to reiterate the requirement of a modification of the site plan if they wanna do
Yep.
adult use marijuana.
I did bring that to their attention.
Oh, did they have a meeting last
Tuesday
night?
You did, okay.
I didn't realize they were on our agenda for the 20th.
Okay.
Okay, I was informed that they were on our agenda for the 20th.
Okay.
But I asked
Just
them
curious.
if they had to
Okay.
come back to the planning board if they.
I mean, they may feel that they don't need a modification of the site plan.
They do.
That was clear when.
I thought it
we did-
was.
Yes, yeah, and that was clear when.
Unless you wanted to change
did
that.
that original
No, it's clear
approval.
that for the recreational part, they need to come back.
The
Yep.
same way as we just told Foursquare
Yes.
tonight.
Yep.
Yep, we made that clear.
Who pays for the master plan? Is there a line item for it, or?
Well, we would get it as part of the budget. They would,
Okay.
the finance committee would recommend it, or it would be opened up on the floor.
But really, where does it come from? Because the finance committee only has so much money to work with, and.
Comes out of stabilization or free
Okay.
cash. right?
Okay.
Or regular budget
Or, yeah.
appropriation,
Okay.
right?
I mean, how much, at the end of the year, how much do we usually have left over that we give,
Oh, in the general fund?
mhm.
Oh, always 10,000.
So we give 10,000
Okay.
at least.
Yeah.
Well, it needs to be, is there a legal requirement for a master plan update? Like, you have to have one for so?
No, it's not a requirement in
Recommended every
Massachusetts.
10 years.
Yes, every 10 years
I mean,
is about
but the
the rule of thumb.
Charlton has really changed so much in 10 years that it makes sense. It's now going on 11 years.
So we had talked about doing the zoning bylaw modification first. So
So-
I'm suggesting that would be the next year activity, and then once that's completed, work on the master plan update.
Is that really the right way to do it?
Well,
Or
I
is-
mean,
or is it
that's a
better to have a
question.
master plan to update the zoning?
You're exactly
That's-
right,
that's-
but we have so many issues with our bylaws that just don't agree to each other, and so many little mistakes that, the master plan's nice. It's nice to have, however, if we don't have a good, if we're making decisions and we have issues like what we've seen, our priority, because doing our normal business every day is affected by the bylaws. The master plan, it's pretty, it's nice, and yes, it gets a whole bunch of people together, all the residents, and it says, where do we wanna see Charlton? But if it's only gonna be a year later, if we're gonna do this and then I mean, I would say, if we couldn't do it, if we had to choose and we only had to do it, and we could do it now, and then 5 years, I'd say, whoa, because we want our bylaws to be close. But we're gonna be in the same frame of mind. I just think on everyday normal business, we need the bylaws, and we need them to agree, and we need to be updated for things that happen now that have never happened, not just marijuana, but even solar and, maybe it's, time to look at our lot sizes and start looking at Charlton and
What we
yes.
call certain zones
And
should
what we call,
probably be
and
changed too.
right,
if ever.
because we have hardly any farms and lots of
Right, right.
agriculture. So I think that and the zoning map are the priority, because we carry out normal everyday business. Should we be thinking about the master plan at the same time? When we're doing the bylaws, yes. And we could, have it open when we're making choices but that's my opinion, you guys can chime in. I wish we could do the master plan first, but our bylaws are so old and outdated. With, again, a lot of things that now exist that are just not in there, that I think that it's gonna.
So you're recommending fix the bylaws, do the master plan, and then update the bylaws to take
But I
advantage of the
think
master
If we
plan?
have
that might
to.
indicate some new initiatives
I
that we
think
would
that's,
follow
that
up
would,
on.
that would be my only
But
concern,
that
is
would
that
be,
something would come up
but
in a
that would be
master
a
plan. that would-
mild, an easy thing to fix, so if we updated in all the parts jive, right, everything, and new things that weren't invented, right,
Truly.
are now in there, and we say, oh, we really wanna boost up the village district, so we wanna really give people tons and tons of flexibility, and we need to go to town meeting, and it kinda gives the residents the chance to chime in both ways, that's my opinion. I think the master plan's way more fun. It really is. I mean, were you part of the master plan piece?
I was not, I forget why I wasn't either, and I should have been, because I was on the EDC at the time, I've never been off, not never, but it's been forever. But no, I remember it happening, and I remember Alan leading it, and I remember he would update us as part of the EDC, but I was not part of that group.
But going to those, I mean, people had such great ideas, and they were talking about bike lanes, and it was just really, people, how nice would it be for people to be able to have bike lanes to, and.
I remember discussions like that, because people want sidewalks, they want bike lanes, they want
We were
true village
talking
districts.
about, trolley crossing,
Yes.
and how amazing, and restaurants, and
Yes.
and bakeries, and so people from Masonic Home could come down.
Yes.
I remember talking about the Masonic Home
That-
residents
yes.
being able to come downtown and they could go to a bakery, go to a
Yes.
coffee shop. Remember, so it was
We are
fun. It was
working on
super. It was really a fun.
Yes.
Yes.
Complete
And-
streets in the
and
village.
People get excited.
And people had great ideas that you would,
Yes.
like residents showed up, and
Yes.
not just the butters or people who
Mhm.
live in, so things like that. And it was just fun.
Yeah.
Bylaws was way more boring, sure. But we're grown ups and we know that, I think that
The bylaws are the rules, the master plan is the vision.
and
so
we should do the vision first, but, right,
you have to fix the rules first.
we need to get it, protect the town
Yes.
by doing the bylaws,
Yeah.
the fun.
Good.
So then I'll forward this information along and ask that it be included in the capital plan and that there be an article on the warrant to fund the zoning bylaw revision at the annual meeting.
Are these costs with the analysis that we're gonna kinda get from CMRPC, because that analysis will kinda take out because this updating accounts for analysis? that?
I think a lot of that is sort of legal time. So an attorney would go through the bylaw, point out all the inconsistencies, and there'd be a process to look at, the use table and the dimensional table. And CMRPC's effort, I think, would help point the way in terms of sort of the major flaws and how it conforms to the current
But we would
master plan.
do an RFP, right?
Yes.
These are just
Yes.
what's the prices that are?
Yes.
These are two recent ones.
You have to get three, right,
2019.
with an RFP.
Yes. I mean, it's significant money, so I don't think you have any trouble
Compare
getting
ourselves
interest.
more than we're a little thin than we should do for, that's just fancy smancy.
Yeah.
So there should also be some other things that we want to get on the warrant for the annual town meeting.
Yes,
Do there's a few things in there.
We want a legal account we wanna request that formally, we need a legal budget. A line item for a legal budget.
Sure.
Many towns do have it, for their planning boards. And
Would that just be planning boards, or would that be?
there's other legal budgets and I think.
Would
the
we have
planning-
our own, on our own
Yep,
budget,
I
our
think
own
the,
line item?
I mean,
Okay.
we would probably not use it, cause these things don't normally happen, and it would stay there forever, but I think we should request, whatever,
Mhm.
10,000.
That's
at least-
one.
That's one phone call.
That's a phone call.
Well, we won't go with the $700 lawyer, we'll go with the $350 lawyer, we'll save some.
Now,
good
as I
discount.
recall, the finance committee always asks each board to come in and talk about their budget, so I think you'd be asked to go in and
We
talk
would be-
about that.
we-
with
Oh,
them.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any general bylaws or any bylaws
Um,
that need adjusting or fixing? Anything that you can think of, Bill, that
Now,
we should address?
to get to town meeting,
Yes, because that's coming up, that's.
When is town
those are.
meeting?
May.
It'll be in May, but, we've got to have public hearings, we've got to have everything else, that's all got to be done
I
by
wanna
the
increase
middle
our
of April,
fees.
so we've got 2 months.
I wanna increase our fees, I think they're.
Jean's on that committee.
Your
committee that's
stipend and
never
your
had a meeting?
fees.
Again, then.
We have the lowest stipend in the whole building, and we work really hard.
But we do it for the fun of it.
I know, and I do love it.
No, but I agree, because we're here later, and there's a lot of blowback, there's a lot of other boards are almost invisible, where we are so and we should be transparent, I don't mean it like that, but we're far more under the gun, under the microscope, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Our meetings go longer than most. I don't ever recall passing another group as we left at nighttime.
Oh, we shut the lights off.
I just,
Well, when you think I mean, no, I think the Water and Sewer Commission is great. They do a good job.
they are.
They get $1,200 a year, $100.
That's my
They
point.
get $100 a month stipend for what they do, and I'm not saying we need to bump it up to that high. It just it's a little. bit
It's insulting.
So there's a
insulting
committee already out there, looking at that, so I don't
That-
think we
that
can do
hasn't
anything.
met.
Hasn't done.
They haven't
That-
met.
They haven't
As-
met?
We have not met.
Well, it's
So-
only
It's been
been
go-
6 months or 12 months, 9 months, right?
So-
It's been a year, because I asked for the
Um,
money a year ago.
So
that's when they-
I
So,
think I would
yeah.
like to recommend also on that, we'll discuss it, we'll keep a running list, that our stipend goes to the amount that the Water and Sewer Commission. I think it's the same expertise, but in a different area.
I would agree.
It's a good comparison, and
When do they meet? At nighttime or during the day?
They meet at night,
Okay.
6:30.
I'd be interested to see, just out of curiosity, how long those meetings are. So basically on a
hours.
2 hour, 2 hours? They get to go home before 9?
Usually.
Yes, I would definitely
I
agree.
mean, when has your fee for plan review or any of that changed in the book? I mean, I read through, has
Yeah.
that
our
been?
fees.
Our fees, we
So
changed them a couple years
in the
ago.
in the
We did.
bylaws too, there are probably there's not fees.
Stipends?
No.
Fines.
Fines.
Oh, okay.
So
yes.
those fines need to go up.
We want fines to be at the state limits.
As
Right,
they
the
should
state
be.
allows $300 per day per offense.
Yeah, we have 50
We're
or
50.
so we want that should be something we should
Okay,
bring
so
to
there's
town
one, there's one.
meeting, and that
Yep.
will pass at
Yep.
town, and that should be no problem.
Well, that you just paid for your stipend.
There you go.
I have a couple other ones that I have highlighted in the
Okay.
book next to my bed, and I'm just joking. But I
So,
really
we probably
have
won't have time the next meeting.
Look.
We should probably put a special meeting for this since it's important.
That's
Just
fine.
to discuss, where we don't put anybody on it. We just discuss things we want to see changed and how we want to approach it at
So,
town
I
meeting.
know we talked about this, everybody bring their book home and take a look at things that just stick out. I mean, I don't think we need to be super extensive because we're gonna be heading in to the new budget season, hopefully. I can't believe we wouldn't get funding. I can't believe the residents wouldn't wanna give us the funding to get new bylaws. They're good to us, and they know how important, how hard we work and how important this is. I just couldn't imagine it not happening.
I would just be, I would want to make sure that somehow, some way, it's put out there that taxes are not going to go up as a direct result of this happening. Because I know the recent tax hike had a lot of people talking, a lot of people are upset, a lot of people are nervous, and I think.
People got their tax bill.
Yeah, and a
Well, that
lot.
was an override, that
Correct.
had nothing to.
Yeah, but what happens is every time we talk, I completely agree, but every time we talk about increasing something, people hear, well, where's it going to come from? Where's this money going to come from? Are we taking it away from the schools? Are we increasing taxes? How are we getting to these
We're
places?
increasing our.
We're increasing our fees.
Yes, and that's why I think that's important to highlight first.
So do we want to add another meeting to discuss some of these zoning changes? Or do we want to try to fit that? Because I mean, we're booked through this segment.
Right.
And we have
and
to
the following
make
week after that,
in
that's
time
3
limits,
weeks away,
because
so.
we need to have something ready and prepared and
You want to
Yeah.
add a meeting on the 27th,
February or March?
27.
February of March? I'm sorry, February 27th?
February 27th?
I could do February 27th.
Can do that too.
No, 27?
Everybody do your homework?
Yes.
Everybody do your homework
Everybody,
and come up with
go
the.
through and
We
see.
gotta make that official. They were
I mean,
at the
how
meeting.
many
Yeah, we will.
will they
okay.
handle?
So-
That's what we do.
Do we have a motion to add a meeting on
That's-
February
Is everybody okay with that
27th?
first?
For
It's hard to do
administrative
more than two.
reasons, we
Yeah.
will have
Only.
we will have
But we're gonna
our
try
agenda
to
as
redo the whole
normal,
thing
but
anyway,
that
so-
agenda will be
We have a
closed.
comprehensive
We'll have to
version.
have open forum?
It'll have to be
No.
open.
No?
It'll be an open meeting.
It'll be open
It'll be
meeting,
an open meeting,
but
but
only
our
to
agenda
discuss
is
our
for
bylaws and
administration.
anything else we
Right.
would need to
Do we
put
need-
at the for town
Okay.
meeting, prep for town meeting,
Prep for
whatever,
town meeting.
whatever we would want.
And because once we come up with ideas, then we have to hold public hearings
Hearings.
on,
Yes.
on those things. So that this will not be a public hearing, it'll be open to the public.
Mhm.
They can sit and listen, but I say
Right.
we, you know,
Um,
we keep it amongst ourselves, otherwise,
Mhm.
that way
This
hopefully we
is-
can get out 2 hours.
Exactly.
So we're hiring a new planner, hopefully, but
Has-
so I'm not sure if an offer letter has gone out. it should be very close to, and will you follow up on that offer letter to make sure that, like, physically gets, even if you have to walk to the mailbox? Okay, but,
Why was, there was supposed to be a meeting tonight, why was that canceled? I said.
because we didn't have any, reply from the other people we wanted to
Okay.
bring in, because
Nobody else was interested.
Did he meet with Jessica today? He was
That
supposed
I
to come
don't
in-
know.
He was supposed to come in and meet with Jessica today.
I don't know, I didn't see him.
I talked to
Okay.
Jessica yesterday, she told me he was coming into the building
That's what I thought.
to meet with her, and she was gonna introduce him to the town administrator.
Okay, so maybe that's all that's needed for him.
And maybe it's happened, I don't know, I didn't.
I don't know.
See, I didn't know that
I
was
don't know.
being set up, so.
Me neither. I'm actually a little uncomfortable that I wasn't made aware of that. Just wanna note that for the record.
There's no surprise.
I only found out because I went into Jessica's office. and I
Don't, see,
specifically
again,
asked-
we act in silos, and if we could, possibly have some sort of
Communicate? No, we
transparency
can't.
with our new planner, hopefully, he's not gonna wanna be here.
In Jessica's defense, we did tell her to
Sure,
proceed.
did.
sure, no, and I think that's
Right.
fine. I
Right,
just-
she did
yep,
get your
yep,
email and she
yep.
did
Right.
follow it.
I'm
She
assuming
did
I'm assuming
talk
it
to her.
happened.
I just don't know whether that.
I was curious to see whether he accepted or did not
Right.
accept.
So I clearly tell too many people our information and we don't get anything, so I think it's
I know.
balanced.
It's
Maybe I
really
need to stop
frozen out
sharing,
there.
and,
Drew said it's frozen.
number
Oh.
2, I have like a list in my mind. I think Alan's old computer is a piece of crap, it's old, and, he'll need a computer. So I think we need to,
Does that come out of our department?
we have the money in the budget to do so.
Well, there is a computer fund though.
Right, and a lot of the other offices all got updates.
The IT guy said it's faster to have a desktop, so we could always do that and then get them a laptop.
I just think
Laptop out of our budget.
most
I think, yeah, that's fine.
we have it in our budget to do so, it just makes it simpler. I think that we should get him a laptop and a docking station.
I think a laptop with a docking station is more than
Because
adequate.
It's
Instead of
not, we're
desktop.
closed on
Yes,
Fridays.
Yeah,
We're closed on Fridays, so.
Exactly.
And normal people, they bring their computers home
Yep.
anyways, and we wanted to have the opportunity to take it to meetings or whatever. Now, we have to figure out exactly what we need for a laptop, right? So we need to kind of, you're gonna be the best computer specialist we have, unless, John, you
So-
happen to know a real lot about computers.
You know, it comes down to his preference too. I mean, I don't know if
know.
we use Macs in here or not. If everything's PC and that's all the service is gonna be, then
I don't know
it's gotta be
about that.
PC, it's gotta be Windows
Yeah,
based.
a Dell or a Dell, or just a Dell or a, or
Anything with
HP.
Microsoft
You know,
Office.
I would get something, yeah.
I'll
Dell.
tell you, I just bought my son a really nice laptop off Amazon for $900, and it's fabulous. And it's a tablet, and you can do all sorts of fun things. It has great space, storage space. I'm tired. Great storage capabilities, and it's really nice. I can send you the specs if you want to review it, because
that's
IT is not my
That's
field
fine.
at all.
It's fine. You
but-
gotta get something that works with a docking station too. They don't always all
Okay.
work with a docking
So,
station.
and
I know
it
the
would just be
H.
Staples or,
Sure.
or, no, what is the other one, Best Buy,
Yeah.
Best Buy has the matching, the price, so they give it the best.
The HP Elite books have a nice docking
Yeah,
station.
that's what I mean.
that
This
goes
one was
with it, with
900
it.
and it's
So
fabulous.
get him the docking
Staples
station, the
credit card.
screen, so he can just use it as a.
That's what this one is,
And then he
yes.
can, and then he can have a regular
This one's touch screen as well as
computer
it has the
screen.
thing, and it comes off and it goes, yeah.
So
It's
that's-
be AMD chip, not Intel stuff.
so you-
No bias there.
Can
The
we
bias.
have
We-
a vote on
we
that?
retract
I'm gonna
that.
take
We
that
retract
out.
that.
Okay, so we have to vote,
Because
so
it's a large
we have to
expense.
vote to do that. Now, can we just do up to a certain amount and then we'll spend less? Can we say,
Budget $1,500, then if you can find a $900 one, right?
and,
Because we have the money in expensive
yeah,
equipment,
that,
if you don't want
because I
to
think
go
if you do
for it.
a laptop and a docking station, we're
Well,
gonna want a
this-
regular PC screen, right, that plugs into the docking station so he can see
So we
full
have an
spreadsheets.
IT department here now.
Yeah.
He's gonna be the one that's gonna be
Does he have a
maintaining,
fire or
he's gonna
something?
be the one that's servicing and maintaining that piece of equipment, I would assume.
Can you reach out to him
I would.
and see what he recommends?
Can't think of his name,
We
but I would
did-
ask
we
him,
had-
let him
Yeah.
know,
Jeff.
let Jeff know that
think that's
we're
Robin.
looking for a laptop with a docking station and a decent sized monitor, 27-inch.
Oh, we have a decent
You
one.
have-
I'm not sure
So
that
you have-
it's really old too. I mean, we
No,
can
he
see.
said it really
No,
isn't.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it? No?
that's fine.
Our
That's
monitor's
fine.
fine, so if we
Okay.
can
All right, then it's not.
4K? No.
What's the docking station for, just curious?
So the docking station it stays connected to the
everything.
monitors, and you can just put your laptop on there, click it on, and then it basically acts as a desktop.
Oh,
You don't even
okay.
know,
Is it plugged in
it has a separate
Oh, yeah.
keyboard,
Oh,
separate
yeah.
mouse, separate monitors, and it's
Right.
just plugged in there. And then when you wanna go, you just unplug it, and take it with you, and
I've
continue
done the
working.
cordless mouse and keyboard, and just plug a monitor in, so I didn't notice there was even
Yep,
a need for a
yep,
docking
there's,
station, so
it
interesting.
makes it really easy.
Yeah, I think I like my docking station at work because I don't have to worry about bringing my plug or anything,
Yep.
like so.
It's easy, you just put it in, hit the button, and throw a switch, and it's there.
And then if your monitor's already connected, it's to your,
You can do the same thing by plugging cables in,
Right,
but
right,
it's just
but-
much quicker.
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
And they're cheap, they're $150.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
not-
really? Oh, okay.
So, do we have a vote to have a budget of up to?
What's in our budget right now? What's in that line item?
How much do we have? What did I say to you?
5, did you say
Is
there
it
was
five or
5,000?
six? Yeah, 5 or 6.
So,
I'd say 1,500 should
I
be
think
enough,
that
isn't
that
adequate.
should be good, then we can look at it if there's no monitors involved and there's just things, so.
and
yeah.
and I think that you should reach out to Jeff and get his recommendation and.
Get his recommendation, but also suggest like an HP Elite book or
Yep.
something like that, nice and small and light, and I know it's got a good docking station that goes with it.
Okay, HP Elite
Yeah.
book.
I'll
Elite
make a
book.
motion to allocate up to $1,500 on a computer purchase.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we're through. We have our official policy written up for our public record request. We're just
saw
gonna
that.
have, it posted to our page on our little website thing.
In light of the open meeting law training, do you wanna post that as an agenda item for the next meeting and take a formal vote on it?
Oh, do we want, didn't we already take a formal vote to have a formal vote? We already had a formal
You
vote to
had a
make
vote
it.
to adopt such a policy.
Yeah, the
This
last
is the
meeting.
Oh.
So let's just add it on there, and then we can agree to it, all agree to it,
Okay.
and
And certainly,
make
you
sure
know,
everybody's
I just
known.
made
It's
it up.
it's not gonna hurt, yeah.
Any
Add
comments?
that on.
Send it
better.
out on an email and respond all.
I heard that always works.
It's like, you could, it's like,
Interesting.
don't breathe.
Interesting that you want to talk to everybody so they can't reply all.
Yeah, but say,
I
you,
would, they
that's,
sort
yeah.
of lost me on that whole thing.
So if you're blind copy company, if somebody hits reply all, it only goes to the person that sent it. It doesn't go to everybody that's
But
blind
everybody else
copied.
sees it.
But everybody else will see.
Not if you do a reply all.
No, not on a BCC.
Oh, no, reply all won't work.
That was,
That's
what-
what I don't
so
know.
you can send information out. You can, as long as it doesn't say, I feel, I want, I wish.
Yeah, so
I
send
know
it, so
one of
even,
them.
so if one of us finds a very interesting article and you say FYI, like, and you don't say.
You can't say, I think this is
No,
interesting.
I think,
That's-
I think this is something our town should adopt, or anything like that, you would have to,
comment.
and if we happen to do that, then we should bring that to this meeting and say, I'm sorry that this happened and discuss it in public, so that's the way it's supposed to work.
You
We
missed all the
did,
fun, it was great.
we modified
cookies.
our agenda to meet with
was it?
what, we were told to take the executive session off, but since we're hiring somebody and we're going through a lawsuit, I think we should put executive session for those 2 reasons for the next, just in
And we
case.
don't need to use them if we don't
Right,
feel
well,
the need, but.
But we have, those things are active, like, open,
Yep.
so right now, we may need to discuss something about a planner, or
On
we
the
might need to
next
go in.
meeting?
I would make sure that those 2 things,
Because they
legal.
said not to keep it, that they didn't want it on unless
I
we
know,
were
but-
going in.
But there's
I
a
don't
good
wanna
chance
get
that we
caught in
are.
a
But it's
position where
very,
we can't
very,
talk about
it's
something.
very active, there's probably gonna be something that we're gonna need to talk about the next.
And you have to
meeting.
specify those 2
And it
things.
could be more
Hiring,
litigation.
planning director,
Yeah,
and.
specifically those 2 things, exactly. So we have, obviously the open forum needs to be moved to the end, because we can't throw off anything, I think normally open.
Is that a requirement to have an open forum?
No, but it opens up
Because
the.
it really takes a lot of time to go
Yes,
through.
well, only because of the subject matter tonight, that's
Right.
not normal.
Yeah.
So an open forum could be, the applicant's flooding my house, and then we normally.
We
That would be a phone
might
call.
wanna limit a comment period of a couple of minutes per person or something.
Right,
Where do you want that added?
this wasn't normal, I mean, I hope it
Yeah.
doesn't become normal.
Yeah.
You've watched a selectman meeting, sometimes it goes on and
Oh my
on,
gosh,
sometimes
yeah.
there's nothing.
Sometimes, yeah, I've seen it go for a half an hour on one time, and another time
So
nobody had a word to
let's-
And
say.
mostly somebody comes up and congratulates someone.
Yes.
on a
So
Yes.
by
town or
law,
something.
if a resident comes up they have the right to keep on talking as much as they want. You can't technically, I mean, you can have that rule, but technically,
Correct.
unless they're swearing and yelling and jumping all
Well, I
over
mean,
you.
Unless
if
you-
they have that much to say, you could schedule them in as a discussion
Right.
item
Sure.
at our next meeting.
But
So leave it
we
there.
should, so I think we should keep open forum, and it also, open forum, also allows for, I don't know, other conversation. I guess we could technically go down as a resident and.
I've seen it happen at the
and
selectmen's
say
meeting,
something,
yes.
and say something to the board as a resident, cause all you need is you can't discuss something that isn't on the agenda
Correct.
technically.
But you can say,
But you
now I'm
can-
speaking as, because I've seen 3 of the selectmen do it, and I don't go to that many meetings, but where they'll jump down and they'll say, I'm so-and-so, and I'm speaking as a resident of the town of Charlton, I'm not speaking as, much like what Karen did tonight, and then they bring up their item.
That way we're just
Yeah.
safe and we're following open meeting law. We should probably make sure we either put it at the end, but I like it at the beginning, because if someone has a quick thing to say,
Exactly.
I know, I think, yeah.
But then maybe start our meetings at 7:15. Give it
I agree.
15
Yeah.
minutes.
I think our agendas are a little bit overly optimistic, because every time they have us getting out at 8:15,
That never
and
happens.
now it's.
No, you know why that is? Because you can't open up
Yeah.
a meeting.
Yeah, you-
Prior to the.
I
didn't
realize that.
That's why.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
so it just opens up the ability to move along
Yes,
if we, okay.
that's why it's like that.
Okay, that
Some
makes
people
more
put
sense.
7 o'clock all the way down.
Really?
Yeah.
But we
Oh.
could definitely take like other business and move it up if because that's so flexible, we could, if we
Right.
had,
To
if
fill
we-
in time.
if nobody
Yeah.
came for that 15 minutes
Sure.
or something.
That has
Just put it
never
under
happened
there?
here.
And then you could always,
Put this under open forum?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
And then,
And we can always move
And
it
we
if
can
we
always
need
move
to.
it
exactly,
down.
you could always
Yeah,
table
'cause
it and then
it's
pick it
not
back up
public
off.
But you
the
can't do it
Exactly.
earlier, but you can do it later, so
Okay.
that's, and I think, is there anything else that I just missed?
No?
Are we going to ask the selectmen to hold an emergency, joint meeting? And if so, when are we shooting for? And how, we need 48 hours, correct?
Yes.
So the
An
earliest we can do it.
emergency, an emergency meeting can be held at any time,
Oh.
if it's truly an
So is there a
emergency.
selectment meeting on Tuesday?
There's a
There is, but that's not enough time.
12th.
That's, on Tuesday, there's a
This 12th,
selectmen's meeting.
yeah.
Can we, also plan a meeting for the 12th and show up at the selectmen's
Yes, can
meeting
we
as a
post-
board
Can we
and?
post the meeting at the 12th and post us meeting all together at the 12th in the select board's room?
And then we could all show up
We can
and,
do that
and
tomorrow.
ask the question?
Well, I think if you wanna meet with the selectmen, they should agree to meet with you.
Well, if they haven't agreed to meet with us,
They
you
haven't
know,
made any effort to get in touch with us, and that
I've-
Can you post
really
it just in
bothers
case,
me.
post it just in
You'll
Right,
have
case.
you
to do
can
that
post it.
tomorrow.
What's that?
I'm not coming in tomorrow, you can post it tomorrow.
I won't be in tomorrow either.
I'll post it.
Okay.
Can anyone post it? Is
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
Just get
how do you
Karen,
do it?
right?
Forgive my ignorance, how do you?
I don't know how to do it online, you can send Eric the thing online, right?
Yeah, you sent it to the town clerk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not Eric.
usually,
You
well,
sent it to Karen.
I always send it to, I always go to.
Karen's gonna give it to Eric anyways.
Right. Eric is the one that does them.
Okay.
But you could physically walk in and say, I'd like to post something. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, cause I,
Just in
Well,
case,
because
and
I'm
if
a
we don't
member of
do
this
it-
board, yes,
If
somebody
we don't do it, we
Okay,
don't do
who's
it.
not a
That's what-
member of this
okay.
board
But
cannot
let's-
do
Okay.
that.
I never knew how the process worked.
Yeah.
So to that point, if by what you said earlier, the only person, we don't actually need the Board of Selectmen, we only need Robin to okay it, then would it be simpler to send her an email tomorrow saying, hey, listen, blah, 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 can we get your permission? Yes, no, throw a read
I
receipt on it.
photocopied, I copied and pasted it right off the Board of Selectmen policies, page 60.
Oh, I did read this, I've been out, but.
We've been down
I
that
did
road.
send them a message just as a concern the other day.
Okay.
And I CC'd Jane
And I hope that you guys,
Tricia.
weren't kind of upset with me. I was really worried that we wouldn't have counsel, that
Right.
in
And it would default.
in my personal name,
Yeah.
all
Exactly.
our
Yeah.
personal
Yes.
names
I guess
are
Even
listed
spelled
because
wrong.
we're
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
we're
Chris.
there. And to have somebody, without
Thank
my
you.
knowledge, tell me that, so as of 5 o'clock today, there was no extension filed at the court. So as of 5 o'clock today, the courthouse doesn't have any extension or anything yet. So, I mean, I hate to think devious things that somebody might be trying to run out clock or whatever, and I heard what Attorney Pill said, and that was great that you
That's a
trust
great,
other
it is,
attorneys.
but I still think that we need to get something filed
If,
somehow, some way, I agree.
Why would we not file on time if we have the
Correct.
ability to file on time?
That's
Why would we
correct.
risk it? It doesn't make any sense to risk it. So,
I mean, I think there's a minimum, like an appearance, I think, from what he said, like, you're appearing, you don't have to file anything, you have to show,
I'm
show
appearing,
that
I'm
you've
acknowledging it,
Exactly.
and I
acknowledged
and I
and-
plan on,
Yeah.
on defending it.
Right.
and, you know, whatever, I'm not gonna get into politics or personalities. I just wanna make sure that since my name's on it,
Correct.
that somebody is looking out for me, and and you too.
Yes.
And we have somebody who will be watching for us, and we're lucky that I was able to say, hey, can you
Right.
help? I was willing to sign a contract, and he didn't want to get me in trouble by signing. I said, whatever, I'll ask for the money at town meeting later, because this is such a serious thing, and he really said, I'll come and I'll help you.
And I don't think you should have to do a pro bono, because everybody else is getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
There's money to be paid. I don't think it's right to ask him, and I'm not saying you're asking, I'm just speaking aloud. I almost wish he hadn't offered that, because even though it's a very kind offer, that almost lets everybody else off the hook, because now we have someone who'll do it for free. And I think that it would almost,
Yeah, I don't think we wanna go down that road
No.
with him.
No.
Or-
No.
What Attorney Pill was really thinking is that he is just a substitute until they approve Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Okay.
maybe they'll, you know,
He's filling in a gap just to keep
which is
the ball
extremely
rolling,
kind
you
of
know.
him,
right,
but there shouldn't have to be a gap.
there shouldn't.
If Mark agrees to do it,
And that's why we want the legal
Right.
account, because this should never happen again, ever, ever,
So I just
ever.
think
It's quite obvious it's the way they want it to play out to begin with. I mean, for me, looking at from the outside, it's their tactic all the way through this
oh yeah,
whole
they ran the
process.
clock the whole time.
But you,
Yeah, this
but
is
you
like,
saw
wait,
the
why are
email.
we?
There was all this correspondence
Yeah.
back and forth, and
Yeah.
we heard nothing. At
Right.
least say, hey, Chair,
Right.
Hey,
share
we're working
with
on
the board
this.
that we're working
We'll-
on
That's
this,
correct.
we have your backs, but
Exactly.
we don't have that.
Oh, by
But
the way.
technically, I believe that the reason this is happening is because there's an embarrassment. The town is currently paying for Kurt's decision to be defended, and now they're gonna pay for our, so the residents
Correct.
the residents will say, wow, you're paying,
A lawyer to defend
you're
both
paying,
sides.
$400 an hour here, and you guys
Yes.
paying $800 an hour.
Yeah, make up your mind what direction you want us to go in,
Um,
yes.
And so,
And that's just gonna come back on us.
Yeah,
and that's the deal, but it's not our fault
that's correct.
that there's any embarrassment or anything else. You know, we are an elected board, we made a decision, and we need an attorney to defend that decision.
That's right.
And, I also thought it was a conflict of interest, since, KP Law negotiated the host contract, and they're defending Kurt, and for them to jump in and represent us, it seems conflict of interest, it seems unethical, it seems.
It's like
it
having the
doesn't
same lawyer
seem-
defend the husband and the wife in a divorce.
Right.
It's the exact
just-
same thing.
And even if
It
everything,
makes no
I mean,
sense.
Jonathan's a great attorney, and even if everything was on par, look at the appearance from the public. The
Well,
public, the
exactly.
residents are now looking at our board going, looking at the town going, whoa.
Yeah, make up your mind.
I'm not concerned about anything that was done or said, I just wish there was better communication.
Yes.
That's all I wanted was communication, just let us
It's
know.
hard when there's litigation, you know,
No.
to get.
Well, when your name is
communication
on the
going.
litigation, when your name,
Right.
I get
Sure,
the difficulty,
sure. I mean,
but
we're a party to this litigation, we
Right.
should have been
Right.
communicated to,
We're
that's
just
my
not,
only.
in this particular instance, we're not just people.
That's
We're
correct.
not residents of the town. We are on a board.
Yes.
We are people who are being sued
That's correct.
individually.
and our name is on.
That's correct.
And I honestly don't know how they could even do anything without our input.
Right,
Well,
because
the select
we're the
board
ones
has-
being
well,
sued.
Yeah,
I-
but it's the select board that does the litigation, so they
But
handle all that, so I
but
can
we would have
understand
to
that.
sign, our name is listed, it's our
Okay.
name. So I can't believe that a random attorney off the street could come in and say, I'm filing something for Patricia Ridlack, here you
That's
go,
correct.
and they'd be like, okay, where's our signature? Sure, I mean, like, okay, but the court just says,
But I,
okay.
you know, I think we all need to be careful not to say too much to the press about what's going on and not mislead people, just and let it take its course.
I never mislead, I only
And
speak
let-
the facts.
And let's, let it be handled by the selectman's office, I think, in terms of public communication.
Yes, as long as we're getting fed some information. You don't know, I mean, this is very, I'm one that things like this normally doesn't bother. Okay, you're gonna sue me, you're gonna sue me. I've been through lawsuits before.
Right.
But I've known where my attorney is, where the suit's going and everything else. This is something that it's like, I have no control over this, and I feel very helpless.
Unfortunately, the selectmen canceled that meeting where it would have been discussed. I forget why they didn't have a quorum maybe, but.
I have to
Where
agree
was it
with Jean,
supposed to be?
because when I opened that letter and I got it, my 10-year-old all of a sudden got wicked upset and said, "Oh, Mommy, we're being sued, are we gonna lose our house?" And you know what? I said, no, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. I said, I'll let you know more as I know, blah, 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 blah. And just the fact that he had to experience that thought process. I mean, again, I realize it's as a board, but it's one of those things where it would be nice to know where we are in the process.
Yeah. And you didn't even vote on it. in your
No,
meeting.
that's exactly my next thought is I said, but I recused myself, but apparently it doesn't matter because it's the whole board.
Poor John was a member for a week.
Your name pretty
So-
quick.
That's
so
the beauty
that's
of
the
John
point.
Smith, though.
There you go.
He's in trouble all the time somewhere.
Again, we're not, I'm not,
If that's your real
I
name.
want us to work, I want us to work together. But I need to protect I'm such a dork, I know, but I was elected to make these decisions for the town, and I won't let the town lose or our decision lose because we didn't do the right thing, because we didn't follow up, because we didn't reach out. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to protect.
And poor John and I did nothing.
The last thing I wanted to
didn't
say
even
is,
get to vote.
I would like to be added as the contact person for LNG, so the emails that come or any correspondence, I want the chair to get that, so could you please
Sure.
go ahead
Well,
and.
so I'll take myself
Yeah,
off and
I
then
want,
do, okay.
I want, everything to come
Okay.
to me, and if we need an additional person, it could be Jane in case I get hit by a bus.
Mhm.
Or on vacation, or,
On
yeah.
vacation, but, I check my email even if I'm on vacation. Have a habit of checking it at 3 o'clock in the morning too, but.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
It's sad.
Yeah, see the time that you do your.
Um,
Being 10:32, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.